Your freedom does not give you freedom to encroach upon other people's freedom.
Something like that. Yeah, like you see those like little pie square or the little pie going around where like people have like cut the pie in the middle in a triangle. And it's like you could cut the pie this way, but like now you've ruined everyone else's pie slice by being a dick. Um,
It feels like it just goes well with the caption of "You woke up today and chose violence."
right, right, right. Speaking of waking up today and choosing violence, Warlord Joel is here, and he chooses violence every day, as far as I know. I'm expecting big things here, he says. So pressure's on for our
Oh,
expert panels. You guys ready to deliver?
Yeah, let's do it up.
Yeah, let's do it up. All right. What's up, chat gang? I am, of course, the magical Mister Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar. I am joined tonight by two proclaimed by me experts on Orruk Warclans. Got Vaniljsas rock in the middle of the screen below me and off to my left. Carnith, how's it going, gentlemen?
I'm good.
Doing well.
Right on, right on. And this is, of course, The Great Enhancening, the ongoing series to enhancenate artifacts. And I think, Carnith, you were mentioning you might have some other enhancements that you have enhancenated, perhaps, for tonight. Right on. So if you're not familiar, this is an ongoing series I've been doing based on an episode of RantCast I did with Vince Venturella last summer, where we kind of went through and talked about like generic artifacts and just kind of rules of design in general. And, you know, a few months later, and suddenly we were like, you know, why don't we just do this for each faction? To lay my cards on the table, my agenda is pretty plain and simple. I think passion should drive, like, games and anything along those lines. And sometimes you read an artifact and you're like, the person who wrote this didn't give a crap about this army. I would take a fan-made, interesting artifact 9 times out of 10 over a generic +1 to hit. So that's my agenda. But go ahead. What's that?
I think we've got one of those where they don't give a crap in the book.
You think so? Yeah. But like that's my agenda. That's my point of view, and I think it's also worth highlighting that in design, people have different points of view and how they approach it. So I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, like kind of your own point of view, how you approach your artifacts when we kind of get in this tonight. So I might as well start with you, Carnith. So what was your approach to enhancinating some Orruk Warclans abilities? And if you want to kind of give a little backfill on your experience with Warclans, you know, what makes you kind of passionate about the army?
Sure. So I've been a Warclan player since the start of time, aka before the GHB. When I
the Dark Ages,
the Dark Ages,
the before times, yeah,
yeah, the before times. So at the time, I was going to play High Elves, and I was really sad that kind of some of the High Elf range was just really hard to get, and that was like Spire of Dawn. We're really going back. RAP Skaven models.
Yeah, you're getting like obsessed with White Lions models and not being able to find them anywhere. Like yeah, like White Lion Chariot. Where the hell is this thing? Like this thing looks so cool. Yeah.
And so it was around the time of my birthday that they had previewed Ironjawz, and I saw the brutes, and I'm like, I know what army I want. This is it. And I just kind of waffled a bit if I wanted to get it or not. And my friends had talked with my father and got me to start collecting, and then my friends got me like a Brutes box, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm in. And so they've always been the army I can fall back to, and so whenever I run into other armies, I'm like, all right, big Slaanesh player, but you know, when Slaanesh was too oppressive, I went back to Orruks because they were still strong, but they were a bit of a better fair fight. They weren't double fighting, do like 18 mortal wound keeper secrets.
Like activating your whole army before I activate one of my units, like that level of oppression.
They were conveniently also the counter to those overpowered Slaanesh.
Oh yeah, because how smashing and bashing worked.
For smash and bash for your whole army in one go.
Yeah, so
fair.
My first test game with that Slaanesh book was against our store manager, and he brought his Ironjawz out, and with his brutes, he almost killed Hellstriders and would have activated the Maw Crusher into my Keeper of Secrets, who had made him fight last, and he didn't get it, and then I spiked the Maw Crusher off the board. So it was like, yeah, this was really just actually a dice roll. What determined that game.
Mm.
So I've always been a big fan of them. Was not always super big on naked orcs, like they are what they are. Like fire slayers are hard to love because they're just naked dwarves, naked orcs. Just honestly,
You know, weird that like a Slaanesh plan has something against nakedness. I don't know, or a Slaanesh player as well.
they're just not interesting. Like at least when
Yeah.
I look at Blitzbarb archers, like you know what? Not to get too raunchy with Slaanesh, but like you don't see everything, so you've left something to the imagination. I would
That's fair.
assume.
That's fair.
But you know, Bonesplitterz just ain't my thing. So it was always pure Ironjawz, and I bought into the memes of Lord of the Ring orcs. They're not that interesting. They're all right, and they've grown on me. So I've been happy to actually collect a full 2,000 points of of Kruleboyz. Actually, I think I now have all of that for a 2K army of Kruleboyz, and I have somewhere like 3,000 points of Ironjawz. So.
Yeah. And I think we'll do a little bit of a sidebar on Bonesplitterz as we get into this, because I think there's as we were talking in the before show off air there, I had this sort of eureka kind of moment there, and I'd like to reset that when we actually get into the episode here. Gorgruntabel says they have so much space for tattoos and other marks, though. I mean, fair. I mean, the army for the freehand enthusiast, I suppose.
I've got a shelf for Gorgruntabel, like just above my finger.
Yeah, that's just all Gorgruntas is what that shelf
Yeah.
is.
Two layers deep of Gorgruntas. And there's a converted Megaboss on the side, but that's like, I think it's 21 Gorgruntas.
Dang.
So that, I guess that's a good opportunity. Vaniljsas kind of same thing. Just a little bit of backfill about like your experience with orcs and stuff like that. By the way, I really loved your point, Carnith, there about like your fallback army. You know, like orcs. Just kind of before we move on, orcs to me have always like stood out as like orcs are orcs are orcs. You know, like they're just no matter where they sit in the competitive field, you almost always have this sort of same representation of orcs players, or at least with my experience going back to like GHB 2017. You look around, and around that time, orcs weren't very good, and I'm like, but the same like 10% of the field showing up to like play them no matter what, and you're just like, you know, so so I always kind of like respect orcs in that way, because it's like. I call it the migrating 7% of death. Like, there's always this like 7% that's just always rotating around whatever like death army is valid at the same time. I feel like they've got something in common with the orc players, where they're just like we're gonna hang out here in death no matter what. Of course, orcs has 3 armies in it, so there's a little bit more flexibility there, whereas death has 4 armies to a whole grand alliance. But I digress. Vaniljsas, I asked you a question, then I cut you off. What's your kind of like experience with orcs, the passion, army, etc., etc.?
I think I started off with Ironjawz again because I was attracted by things like the Gorgrunters and the cabbage. And once so I played quite a few games with Gorgrunters initially. This is back, I think it's the first Ironjawz book. And I was never very happy with them. Like, I loved the models, but whenever I was using them, I'd just get rocked every time. But I just kept playing them. And, like, at some point, it just sort of clicked. And I just started rolling through people. And at that point, I was there like, well, these Gorgrunters are pretty good. I'll buy some more Gorgrunters. And then I'll buy some more Gorgrunters. And then some more. I never really liked Ardboys. I felt like the models were very like blocky and stuff
Chonky.
Mm.
like that.
Yeah, they're like chonky in the bad way, like in the Space
Yeah.
Marine way. Shots fired at 40k early tonight.
So I got one here, and he just looks so awkward.
Interesting.
You can even see the blocky shape in like his torso and his legs, how it like connects together.
Well, it's kind of like when you look at like old models meant to be on a square base. They have this like this blockiness to them, and Ironjawz came in AOS, and you're like, why are you still using these older design sensibilities, right? That's my recollection anyway.
I do like brutes as well, so I've got quite a few of those. I like to mix them in sometimes. Ironjawz, similar to Carnith, they've been my I guess my home army. Like I'll go everywhere else. So like you can see on my shelf behind me, there's Fire Slayers there. There's like KO over there. There's giants there.
Mhm.
But every time I come back to the Ironjawz, if I'm not feeling very good with the game at the moment, then I'll go play my Ironjawz. If there's nothing that's really exciting me, then I'll play my Ironjawz. They've always been a sort of does what it says on the tin army, and everybody who plays against them pretty much always has a fun time against them. So they're always like the good option to take.
Mhm.
Uh, some people might get upset with giants because you count as 20 models and you're hard to kill, so they just view their attempts as pointless. People might get annoyed at Fire Slayers because they used to save stacks to oblivion,
Yeah.
all things. But the whole time, Ironjawz were always there, like, I'm going to fight you, and I'm going to die when I fight you, but I'm going to kill more of you, hopefully, and that's my game plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very interesting to me that both of you like kind of I mean you migrate out from like Ironjawz, but like you Ironjawz is the home base. You know, I have to I have to think or I have to wonder if that's the experience in chat gang. Please chime in here if you're an IJ player or Orcs player. I have to wonder if that's like a commonality amongst Orc players. Like it's that like awesome home base. You know, I think Games Workshop and Games Workshop's orcs are pretty what's the word iconic, you know, even going back to like Warhammer Fantasy Battle and like sort of the fallen through deal of like what became Warcraft. I don't know if everyone knows this story, but that was essentially Games Workshop about to branch out into the thing, and they had a deal with Blizzard to make this game. When the deal fell through for whatever reason, everyone's got different perspectives. Blizzard had to make legally distinct from Games Workshop orcs. um, but there's like a through line there that you can still kind of trace, and they still have that like feeling of like they still have that Games Workshop a little bit of that DNA there. There's actually a very famous Penny Arcade comic where the one character I forget the names of the characters. I think it's with Tycho and Gabe. Gabe like is like, man, these like games like, oh man, Warhammer is just like World of Warcraft, and he's like, I swear to God, if you say that ever again, I will open my mouth like my 1,000 mouths and sing the song that ends the earth or whatever. Like just this like so triggered by like people comparing WoW orcs like or Warcraft orcs are like WoW orcs, and it's like, you motherfucker, it's like absolutely the other way around. And I think that's just a fun little bit of trivia that's like kind of lost to time there. Um, but yeah, so I like this commonality of like the home base army and orcs kind of being what you see on the tin. And I guess how do you feel the artifacts have like come out? You know, we've had like essentially I guess three versions of orcs to my mind. You had the sort of that sort of like early Warhammer, and then the GHB, the pre-Warclans, the pre-soup phase, right? You had that like sort of middle ground or that middle period where they had like where in the GHB they got reset into casino orcs for like a 6-month period, where I think is the closest to oppressive they've been, barring perhaps now they're really strong. Um, but you had a casino wall era, and then you kind of have like Warclans era, and we're in like two versions of the Warclans era, right? Like V1 and V2. So
26 wars in a turn is perfectly balanced.
I agree.
Oh yeah, with Aether Quartz Brooch, just hey, you roll 5 ups, it's just +1 damage. When you know what, we go until we end.
Hey, I brought a load of pigs and a cabbage, and my list is 1,700 points. Why is it 1,700 points? Because I bought some more command points to go with my Quartz Brooch. By the way, the Mighty War ability, so I can re-roll my War roll to see if I get the 6 twice.
That was oh my god, I hated that ability. Like, loving Ironjawz, it was this, oh well, you gotta roll a 6, and if you roll a 6 and only but a 6, but only on Tuesdays, then you get your +2 attacks, and anything else +1, and God forbid something died. Oh, you rolled that 6, sorry, you lose your command ability this turn. You're like, oh well.
Well, see, if you wanna hit the sixes, what you need to do is you need to do it more. So that's why you would go down the points, right? So that you could do like, I don't know, 15 wars in a turn. You keep rolling the dice for those plus attacks, and some of them are sixes. And then you're there looking at your opponent, going, "Hey, these three pigs, they have like 126 attacks now." And the person's just looking at you going, "I'm just going to take my models." And you go, "Well, they died, so smashing and bashing, those are going to attack now. They also have 126 attacks."
See, that's why I enjoy brutes, because 10 brutes will just chunk nearly anything, and most of my math points to 15 brutes killing a gargant on the turn they want now. So I'm just like, yeah, cool, they can reach me. I'm just gonna hit them with, like, you know, I have a mini army of one punch men. So they're literally going to go bring down a gargant, and then the other one's going to go bring down another unit of or another gargant.
So yeah, back to the question though. Like we had sort of these, to my mind, like 3 periods, or at least I'll frame it as like sort of 3 periods of orcs. How have the artifacts been throughout that span? Do you feel like because like I said, the army is as it says on the tin, but how have the artifacts been in that span?
I think every destruction player pours one out every time they build an army for Battle Brew. They remember that days, it's in their DNA. They remember 1+1 to hit and wound. It used to be on mounts. So it's a shame that one's gone. Artifact wise, geez, can I even remember what OG or Ironjawz artifacts were?
If you can, it's moving on type thing. You know, like was there nothing stood out? You know, like okay.
The original, like the first Warclans book, I mean, Metal Ripper's Claw. Like, who doesn't love Ren 3?
Right. Vaniljsas sounded like you had something kind of like interject there.
I think other than Metal Ripper's Claw, the only real Ironjawz artifact I remember is Ether Quartz Brooch.
Yeah, yep. That or
Brythonian Gauntlets, which you guys will notice in my Great Enhancening choice. I also loved that. People tended not to use it. What it did was it gave you an extra 3 inches on the piling. And if you were running double cabbage, it was brilliant, because what you could do was you would double charge into a player's screen. You would have one cabbage blow up the screen, and then the other cabbage would pile in 6 inches and then attack 2 inches. So they will probably go straight into the juicy good stuff behind the screen.
I mean, you're usually setting your screens at like usually about a 4 or 5 inch mark, right? So even if you're like 7 inches back, you're looking at Pain Town, right? So yeah, it throws off people's math like pretty hard. I've been on both sides of that with like a Van Hels, with a Van Hels where I'm like, actually they're gonna pile in again, and just like a mere 3 inches more than what someone anticipated can be a huge swing in the game momentum. So, phrasing. Damn,
Really
I always
on the fly.
yeah, I will say in the current book, and even did they? I think they had the ability back in the first book, Iron Suns, that enemy face charge. No one ever expects it. They're like, oh, I'm gonna stay 4 inches out. I'm like, cool. Command point. By the way, these 3 units are now charging you. Good luck. I've got the momentum now.
Fantastic. So that's, I guess, kind of the high points of like kind of resetting some of the high points of the artifacts. What are some of the low points? Like just like the person who wrote this had no idea what we want type thing. Does anything stand out?
On a 2-up, something gets to happen. On a 1, your artifact you spent great points on, or sorry, you spent a resource on, does nothing. Have fun.
Yeah.
I'll read it for you. Armor of Gork. The bearer has a ward of 6+. Who cares? You can add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by the bearer. Pretty good. I like that. More killing. However, you must subtract 2 inches from the bearer's movement characteristic, and the bearer cannot run.
Okay, I'll actually go to defense for Armor of Gork here. I actually like it. So the 6-up ward is nothing like. It's not bad. It's actually
it's anything at all. It's anything at all.
Right. Yeah. Like the +1 to hit, cool. I was going to all out defense anyways, so that doesn't matter. And the -2 movement, it's going on the cabbage anyways, so I'm moving nearly 20 inches a turn. Like, I'm getting to all the targets. That Mawcrush is sitting in the middle, and yeah, I'm just gonna beat everyone to death. Anyways,
Vaniljsas, why
So,
don't you like it?
I'm usually looking for things that are, I guess, interesting to my army, to like change how I'm building it slightly
I
rather
see.
than stuff that's generic.
Well,
So like this -2 inches to movement, what that does is that basically says this is going on a cabbage only,
okay.
because the Megabox on foot only walks like 4 inches. So taking away his ability to run and taking 2 inches off his movement, he's moving 2 inches a turn, so it can never go on him, which means it's going on the cabbage.
Okay.
And good enough to go on the cabbage? Well, yes, but it's also not exciting. I don't find it. I don't look at that artifact and go, I'm excited to use it.
Interesting.
Whereas one of my favorite artifacts from the last book, and they carried it over into this current book, is Destroyer, which is just once per game at the start of the combat phase, you declare that you're using the Destroyer, and you add 3 to the damage characteristic of the weapon until the end of the phase. Now that's super exciting. You tell your opponent you're going to use it, so if they've got any mechanics to like fight first or something, it might mess with their target priority. And for you, it's like this big damage spike.
Hmm.
Uh, Whereas I feel the other artifact is what it's doing is it's increasing survivability and it's also increasing reliability. Whereas for me, I quite enjoy that sort of massive spike. You
So
know,
you're like kind of like a Timmy, like sort of I guess like maybe a difference between like a Timmy and a Spike. Literally, like you're looking more for the Timmy, like the flashy big effect, as opposed to the Spike, who's more likely looking for like a consistency. Usually, efficiency and consistency are kind of like Spike's MOs. So
yeah,
that
I I want the artifact to change how I'm going to play that model.
interesting. Interesting. That's well. I think that parlays pretty decently into your design philosophy, and then we'll since you're already kind of rolling here, we'll bounce to Carnith afterwards for his design philosophy. So I think you've kind of talked around what your design philosophy was, but like if you want to kind of reset it and be maybe and kind of state it a little bit more plainly for everyone, like what was your design philosophy? I think you already kind of like nailed a key point, but if you want to reset it and just kind of
Yeah, so
yeah.
for me, I want something that I think is exciting. Or if it's not hugely exciting, I want it to change how I'm going to play. Particularly if it fits into a narrative that fits the army.
Interesting. So you're looking for something that, like you said, like doesn't pigeonhole you into a model. You're looking to build something that like is exciting, that kind of changes the way you play. I think I remember when we were talking, just kind of when I asked you to come on the show, I don't know, weeks, months ago, whatever, time's meaningless. Um, something like you like artifacts that like I think you said the word switch, like a switcheroony or switch, like you like this a switch hitter type artifact is something you said. And I think that's interesting. So Carnith, I guess, and again, this is chat gang. I think it's important to highlight how people have different design philosophies. A lot of times we throw this sentence out there in the community, and I see, oh, this is bad design, and it's like you listen to like like people whom you trust on the internet to have like good opinions and stuff like that, or your friends group or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is bad design, but it's like why is it bad design? Being that second tier thought, what makes it bad design? Because there's different approaches to design. We have what we call our first principles, and I've in no uncertain terms had Vaniljsas outline his sort of first principles of design. Yeah, I think it's important to kind of like to understand that like there's different approaches to design. I think that there is stuff that is clearly bad design. It just it doesn't do what it says on the tin. It's the expectations and the reality aren't aligning. It goes against some sort of third rail principle. Third rail would be the opposite of third rails are I think we talk about these a little bit like things that you don't touch in design. Playing with the priority roll seems to be a third roll for Warhammer for Age of Sigmar. Like the priority roll is here to stay. Like that's just and taking it out of the game or things that remove it just seems to be a third rail. Like we can only sometimes infer these because the designers aren't exactly sharing their design documents with us, right? So we have to kind of infer some of this stuff, and from there again get people thinking about why is it bad design. So Carnith, What was your kind of first principles? How were you approaching your design? What's good design to you?
So I like things that play around with the Legion's abilities. If your artifacts aren't helping like enhance or do something interesting with design space that you've created, then I think you're missing some stuff there. So
I like that. I like
while
that.
yeah, so while a lot of my stuff, like my Ironjawz artifacts, call out the specific hero it's going to be used on, but I also wanted to target things that weren't really seeing a lot of play, like the shaman. Who takes a shaman in their Ironjawz army? Like maybe some people do, but like for the most part, if you're taking a wizard, it's actually you're taking the arcane tome and you're throwing it on the one of your war chances. And he's like, yeah, he's my caster because he's going to do as good a job as your shaman. So let's try to get him to do something more utility based.
Yeah, why play here? Why pay a hero tax when you already are like kind of including this other thing, right? Like,
Yeah, so like I'm gonna pay 25, 15 points more to get +1 damage on a unit. Yeah, I'll take that every day. So, um, and so like a lot of the buffs I came up with, I've always considered myself a Johnny Spike player. So I wanted things that were going to help combo with other units. I set some limitations because I didn't want something to be like, yes, you're always going to take this, and it's actually going to make this unit go out of control when it's already doing well.
so
Like,
you set yourself some third
Yeah.
rails, like some things you're not going to touch. You're like, I don't want to go out of bounds here. I don't want to. Yeah. All right, go on.
And yeah, so I like I said, took some inspiration from what other war schools were already doing. Some things were clearly like meant to be like, yep, this will go here, but it's gonna change how the unit's gonna function and might change some list building. So we'll actually see that in Kruleboyz.
All right, right on, right on. I like that you kind of have you both approached your design at a little bit different trajectory, and you do seem to have some same sensibilities. So this is really interesting. This is like me and like Ian from Just Play. Like we have slightly different approach trajectories at like things that we kind of agree upon, and like we come to like little bit different conclusions. Those are always for me the most interesting conversations. I personally, I think everyone knows that I'm a bit of a Johnny Timmy. I have that firm like 5-10% of a spike in me that just never is. It's unassailable. It's always there, you know. But I Johnny my way to the Timmy finish, and I think a lot of my artifacts when I designed some for Soulblight Gravelords on the previous Great Enhancing, you could see where I did a little bit of what you did, Carnith, where I'm like, when I look at this like Blood Knights when I look at the Blood Knights faction or sub allegiance, I want something that is the most Blood Knights it could possibly be, right? And then like, you know, doing things like that, but also, you know, wanting it to be a big combo and something kind of silly. So a little, you know, little column A, little column B. So you've got more artifacts as you've got what, 8 artifacts or 8 enhancings?
4, 3, 9 actually. I'm bad at counting, which is real bad. I teach math, so
you've got 9. That's all right. Math's overrated anyway. And then how many enhancings do you have here, Vaniljsas?
I'm apparently half-assed in this. I've got 2 artifacts for Ironjawz and 2 command traits for Kruleboyz.
Interesting. All right. So we'll have you lead off, Carnith, and we'll have you do like a couple with Ironjawz, and then we'll yeah.
Alrighty, so we'll start with Kruleboyz. So I want to think of something to make the Sludge Raker do something different. I like that it gives out that mortal wound buff. However,
so when you're talking about the Sludge Raker, reset it for people who don't necessarily play Orruk Warclans.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So Orruk Warclans. It's the Sloth Gator creature that's got the big gangly like hand coming out, wants to come touch you like salad fingers. Reference for anyone who's been around in the internet for anything longer than 15 years at that point. But it has a nice big aura around it. If you're wholly within 12 of it, thank you. There it is. And if you're wholly within 12 of it, when a Orruk Warclans Kruleboy model hits that 6 on the mortal wounds, it does 1 more additional mortal wound. So your Gut Rippers would do 2 mortal wounds, your Bolt Boys would do 3 mortal wounds. You know, it's basically what turns on the Bolt Boy shooting. And so what I came up with was a mount trait. I'm going to call it From the Depths It Came. So the Snatch a Boss would do 1 more additional mortal wound on a 5-up. So I'm extending its range. However, I take away it's only melee weapons only that now gain the buff. This will allow Gutrippaz to actually probably be a much more effective force, as if you give them poison, now they're doing mortal wounds on, or 2 mortal wounds on 5s and 6s. Increases their damage and might actually make them worth 180 points.
Interesting. So you kind of like looking to like sort of play again with sort of what's there, what's going on in the army, and just kind of enhance that.
Yeah, like I think there are some good bones in there. You know, let's have some fun and change them up a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, Vaniljsas, how do you feel about that? Like,
Of course, we have to ask the question about power. But I do like the idea and where it's going.
No, the developers will deal with the numbers later. Like that's their job. We're designers right now. But yeah, go ahead.
I like the idea of encouraging the different play style. In fact, that's what my Kruleboyz command traits are actually designed to do.
Right.
So for me, like the moment I hear that, I assume that Carnith has seen Kruleboyz. He's probably played them a bit, and he's gone, I am pushed really heavily into using crossbows. How about I have a way of playing it that's not crossbows? And that's actually a similar way to how I came to look at Kruleboyz as well.
Interesting. So yeah, Carnith, go ahead and you got another enhancenation you'd like to.
Sure. Called it Slapclaw Spittle. So Slapclaw is the name of the named Sludge Raker that you can get. He is ridden upon by Slumdrek, so that's the name model. So Slapclaw Spittle was the character's chosen weapon is always counts as being in Sludge Raker range. So he does not have to be supported by the Sludge Raker. He's allowed, you can throw it on the Vulture, or you can throw it on the Great Gnashtooth, and he can go off and, hopefully try to spike some mortal wounds out somewhere. So just kind of allow something to, go off. Now, my only thought on design was, should this be allowed to stack with the Sludge Raker if it happened to be in range? Like, if it's in range of the Sludge Raker and has this artifact, would it technically do 4 mortal wounds? I think that might be a little too strong. But melee mortal wounds are at least a lot more fair
than range mortals. Yeah.
I've got to say, one thing I really like about that is it's something to give to a named character, which is design space we don't really see. So what you're doing there is you're saying, hey, if you take this named character, you'll have this unique ability to pass on the buff to, like, you could suddenly, like, you envenom a vulture, and the vulture flies off like super fast and just does like this strike from nowhere, and that to me is so exciting. I would love that.
Yeah, right on. I like that. Good. I am naked without a PowerPoint. Waller Joel. How about this, Waller Joel? We'll circle back and I'll have you do a mini Bonesplitterz, like a part 2 of. We'll do a episode 118.5. You can make a PowerPoint on Bonesplitterz. All the Bonesplitterz like stands are just so mad at me right now. All right, Vaniljsas, what do you got?
So the first one I'll go with, just because it ties to how Carnith did his first artifact, is so I've done a command trait for Kruleboyz. I called it Scariest Tactics. So you know where this is going immediately if you play Kruleboyz, because the Scare Tactics ability for Gutrippaz. I wrote a little narrative thing for it, because I think all these things should have something. So I wrote, this killer boss has taught his army that mimicking the screams of their enemies dying whilst rattling their shields adds to the fun. So what it would do is, when a Gutrippaz unit is within 6 inches of the killer boss and you use their Scare Tactics ability, which for people who don't know, it's used at the start of the charge phase if you're not in combat. You roll 2d6 against the enemy's bravery, and if you equal to or beat it, then you give them -1 to hit for the next combat. That's what the base thing does. You get a modifier to it per 5 Gutrippaz in the squad. It's a bit lackluster generally, but when you stack it, it can get a bit painful on some units. But it's generally like an added bonus, and I was thinking, what if we made this more into like a feature so that somebody could lean into Gut Rippers and really go for it?
Yeah, this is kind of like with Night Hunt players. One of the big criticisms I hear from like Night Hunt players is like they really want to do more with bravery bombs. Like it's just like every time, and I think broadly speaking in AOS we have this sort of like hanging chad, this just little like vestigial tail of a mechanic, which is bravery in the game, and it's partially there, but it doesn't feel like it's fully played with and fully like fleshed out. And so I like opportunities to like sort of enhance these little mechanics that just sort of are there, but like man, they like the imagination runs wild, and you're like, if only we do a little bit more with this. So I like where your head's at with this. All right, I'm sorry I cut you off.
So what it would do is
Carnigate as a bravery 4 goblin. Screw you all.
So what it would do is, if it's successful, it would make it so that the enemy unit cannot receive Inspiring Presence in the next Battleshock phase. Maybe that's a bit too strong.
No. It's right where it needs to be.
But what I also added, because I also want to incentivize people to take big blocks of Gut Rippers, like I want these blocks to just come from like the side and just go for people, is if the modified roll, that way it accounts for the number of models in your unit,
Okay.
exceeds the enemy's unit's bravery by at least 2, then it also makes them -1 to wound. So the idea that the enemy's about to charge you and they just see this massive block of Gut Rippers who are utterly terrifying, and suddenly they're like, I don't want to fight that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, these guys are making the screams of your dying kin. They're rattling shields at you. They're stood in the forests and swamps and that, so they're barely visible, even how many of them there are. And I want them to actually put fear into your enemy.
All right, Carnith, I'll let you go ahead and like weigh in on the design of this and what you think, and then I've got some thoughts because I this is bravery debuffs, and go ahead.
I'm a real big fan of like turning off Battleshock. I mean, as we do play Ironjawz, and we can suddenly make 3 units not immune to Battleshock. We need more ways to turn that off. Like just units suddenly just going like, oh well, you did 3 damage to me. All right, I'll just spend my last points at the end of the round anyways. Like everyone just keeps a battle point around. OBR just goes, well, that's cute.
Hey, let's not punch OBR.
I mean, there's also half of Chaos runs Bravery 10.
Yeah.
So many things are like Bravery 8.
Even Soul like
9.
Brave Lords, we're like Bravery 10 all around the world.
Yeah, there's so many things that just have such high bravery that they either get so defensive that they're never going to see Battleshock, or all right, on a 6 I lose a model. Like we need more things that are going to affect it. Like I know,
I like that.
Kind of going off a little slightly off topic of Slanesh. Slanesh was supposed to have a lot of things that
go. This is RantCast. Go off topic.
Okay,
You're encouraged.
Right,
You're encouraged.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Slanesh was supposed to have a lot of things that had bravery bombs, and they amount to nothing. Mm-hmm. So,
Night Hunt feels that. Night Hunt feels that.
Flash Gator Courts is supposed to have stuff for bravery bombs so that they can do more mortal wounds on screen. That hardly ever feels like it's actually even played out. So that's a design space that I wish GW would lean into more. And the fact that when they introduced bravery, the first thing they showed off was, here's our new mechanic. By the way, this is how you ignore it. And I think that goes off, that puts on such a back foot that it's like, all right, this is a mechanic they don't care about.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to like the vestigial like limb sort of like notion that I kind of brought up a little bit earlier. Like, the Battleshock itself, I don't care as much about. Like, and that's not to contradict you. It's like, yes, but like going a little bit different. I want to see more stuff that plays with bravery in some way whatsoever. So I like where you're beating the bravery characteristic and then you're adding a debuff. Like, I really like shutting off Battleshock. I don't mind either, by the way, because if we're gonna have like a million ways to be Battleshock immune, having ways to shut it off feels like fair game to me. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just it's the arms race of mechanics, and especially if it's costing you something to do it, and you're just sort of like betting resources, right? That's resource management. That's like as old school as RTS and wargaming gets. Is resource management and sort of betting my resources against your resources. That's the name of the game. So I'm like cool with that. Like you're spending an enhancement for this. This is this is a big deal, and you're banking on this as part of like your play style now because you're kind of going into it. It's denoting that you start to build units a certain way. Like it's the sort of thing where like on paper you should be great. Like it's just when everyone else has not great stuff, they feel bad, and I'm like no, everyone should have great stuff. Like and so I like that. I do like the design space it goes into. And
it would be a command trait for me as well, is it stops Kruleboyz taking things like super sneaky. So it does pull the focus, like I was intending, away from that crossbow spam.
So you're looking at the opportunity cost too for the army. You're going to have to actually like think about this in your list build, and I mean really kind of going hard in the paint. I think it's, again, the numbers, maybe we can play with the numbers down the line because that's a developer thing. We're designers right now. We're unleashing our imagination. We're coming up with like really good ideas to push things. Sir Entity, evening gents. Hope you're all well. As a Soulblight player, I'd love psychology to come back. Something feels off about OBR dropping the bravery of my zombie when they're immune themselves. Yeah, death is in a weird place. Like in when I started playing, it was like Warhammer Fantasy Battle. This actually reminded me of something I wanted to bring up. Your mechanic reminds me of like my main battle strategy back in like Warhammer Fantasy Battle, like 4th, 5th edition. Was they had a rule? Undead had a rule where if my unit outnumbered your unit, I would force a break test on the charge. So like break is like your army would like break and try to retreat, and then you could overrun them and kill everything basically for free. And so my whole point was to just have these huge blocks of skeletons to where like I would just outnumber you, and then you'd have to take a break test when I charge you. Sometimes fail, and then like you would just go to retreat, so I wouldn't even have to fight you, and you just get overrun by skeletons. The trade-off as an army was when you popped my necromancers or my vampires or whatever, like everything in my army took a break test and a radius of that as like their like necromantic energy that held everything together like failed and everything fucking exploded. And it was cool as hell. I wouldn't mind death getting a little bit of that heat back where like, okay, yeah, we're unfair where we don't take break tests, but if you pot shot our heroes, it feels like it would be impossible to balance right now in the era of like the shooting meta the way it is. But I would still like to see some callback to that type of mechanic for my army, where like they gave us we can with Soulblight Gravelords we have a -2 bravery debuff we can put on you if like our units are near you. I'm like, what? It's just such a like light touch in like what used to be kind of a central mechanic to the army. And I'm not saying that all old mechanics should be explored because there's a reason like we evolve and we change and we move on. But Games Workshop's the one that put bravery in this game and Battle Shock as a entire phase unto itself. Right? They decided it's worthy to stick around. So I feel like they should decide to do more with it. I'm not going to say what it should be. I just think it feels like there should be more going on there. I like my Ossiarch Bone Reapers being Battle Shock immune. What's the trade-off for it, though? Is it because we're slow? I don't know if slow equates straight to, like, Battle Shock immunity. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe because Ossiarch Bone Reapers are Battle Shock immune, like, I don't know, like, your army gets some sort of like weird call it like a like doomer resolution where like they know they're fucked anyway, so like they have a bonus to their Battle Shock tests. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, oh man, these guys never fucking break. We're gonna die no matter what. Like some sort of like start thinking about like the way that like when you're pulling that rubber band in one direction for something to be great, where do you pull it in the other way for someone else to be great? So like that's I guess where my pitch is.
I mean, and again, I know we're talking about orcs. It'd be cool if something like OBR did have something to do with the bone tithe. Like, your army can pay the bone tithe beforehand. Take every unit as a model.
Yeah,
and then like it negates some bonus to OBR.
I love that
because the tax has been paid.
I love that. Like, okay, so we're like, what if we're Battle Shock immune? Welcome to RantCast, by the way. This is the Orc Show. Like, okay, yeah, we get our Battle Shock immune, but you can pay the tithe. And, like, not take break tests. You just, like, snipe one model. And, like, you never have to, like, Battle Shock immune. You never have to take Battle Shock tests yourself. Like, doesn't that feel a little bit more fair or like a little bit more interesting? And it plays with like our actual bone tithe mechanic, which I don't see in my army anywhere, which is
Like, at
weird.
least in Path to Glory,
Yeah,
like at least Path to Glory.
yeah, yeah. Or like you could like. Like we're about to do some oppressive thing with like crazy rules, and you're like, actually, we paid the tithe this week, so you don't have to kill us, and we're like, and we don't charge you, like just some crazy stuff. That'd be like, I'm like, oh no, actually, like the Mortison comes over, actually they are current on their taxes, so we don't need to assault their city today. Like, oh man. But like obviously it doesn't need to be that big swing of a game mechanic, but that even isn't a design space they're thinking in right now, where like an army can pay the tithe and stuff is kind of, again, that come on, Games Workshop. I know you guys have some really creative people out there. Rating party, 1-inch hero, rating party of 5. Thank you so much for the raid there, my friend. Cinderfall Gaming dropped you a tier 1 sub for 8 years of support. Thank you so much, Luke. If you're not familiar with Cinderfall Gaming, YouTuber, and basically if you're in a Facebook group, you're in one of his Facebook groups. Love how excited Meph gets when the topic of OBR. like just say vampire or Ossiarch Bone Reapers, and I just like basically pop out of my chair. I'm excited. Yeah. Just kind of catching up on chat here real quick before we move on. Bravery 4, yeah, Horgas and Flares. And earlier on, Iron Gauntlet 11231 followed. Thank you so much for that follow. So I think we're caught up here. Ulf Paint's dropping 1,000 RP to remind everyone that chat gang ain't none to mess with. I thought they crumbled instead of running. Bravery works more like crumble than old morale. Yeah, the skeletons exploded. Like you didn't, like you took a break test. You didn't like necessarily break and run. Like you just like you turned to you and then you lost like X number of models and stuff. Like you'd go down like 20% and 30%. Like you just lose a ton of dudes depending on how that break test turned out. That would be great. But have Bone Tithe have some random risk like losing Blood Angels to Death Company. Please not my Terminators or Bikers. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know. Like that's where I would sit down like it's homework and spend like a fucking week coming up with like cool ideas for how Bone Tithe would actually look in the game. In fact, I might be on Warhammer Weekly next week, and I might tease the subject, and it might have something to do with fixing Ossiarch Bone Reapers. And I'm totally going to self-plagiarize us and this episode and all of your guys' great ideas. Carnith, you came up with the Bone Tithe thing. I'm going to steal it shamelessly next week, and
hey, I'm glad one of my ideas is going to make it out there.
So, well, no, all your ideas are making it out there now. Like you're on RantCast, man. I'm your favorite content creator's favorite content creator. You may not have heard of me, but your content creator friends have heard of me. That was to everyone out there. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So, I think we talked about like the design space of the sort of bravery and kind of retooling Kruleboyz. Carnith, you're back up now, moving us on to the sort of next segment.
All right, next one. Unfortunately, not real exciting, but I think it still fits in Sights and Flavor. I call it a personal mud job. 9 wound or less character, can't be targeted by abilities or ranged attacks unless 12 inches. So, I stole Cloak of Midnight from Idnef Deepkin.
What's this for?
Kruleboyz still.
Kruleboyz still. Okay, we're still on Kruleboyz. All right.
So personal mud job can't be targeted unless you're within 12. Now you like your shaman can help move up. Again, it's allowing your units to do something more so that your critical kill a boss who, if he's within 3 inches of any of your units, they can only max lose 1 model to battle shock. Like if he dies, that's it. Like your units start dropping. They're only bravery 5 and 6, and they're not durable dudes.
Mm-hmm.
So just make them not be targetable. So can't get sniped by sentinels, can't get sniped by the pros and Kruleboy player. Still can get charged by melee, and that's fine. But just you just can't be also hand dusted either because he's just not visible.
That's fair. Unless, well, I mean, Nagash is
You need to make him untargetable rules-wise instead of not visible, because otherwise you'll still get shot by sentinels.
Well, okay, sorry. How I phrased it was can't be targeted by ability or ranged attacks unless within 12 inches. So that was within the initial language.
Yeah.
But the other one, I did write a little bit this is for a command trait. It's called Dark Dealings. This general has closer ties with the Dark Forge Masters that his Hobgrots trade with and has folded his most trusted runners. Pick a unit of Hobgrots, they gain venom-encrusted weapons in our battle line.
This is a trait?
Yeah. So basically it'd be he is so in tune with the dark with Chaos Dwarves that his like Hobgrots, like he's just cool with his Hobgrots, so they get some of the better weapons because they can actually run with his crew. And so they can be a little stabby unit of Grots and actually do something.
Have we seen a design space yet where a trait unlocks battle line? Because if not, I absolutely adore it. Actually, like,
I mean, I just literally just added battle line when I talked about it. I at least said they should gain venom encrusted weapons. They get the good weapons, but yeah. I don't see why it should not also make that one unit specifically battle shock. If you want 30 Hobgrots, go for it. Like, who cares?
Yeah,
I want 30 screaming little Grots actually stabbing and doing something.
I mean, you could also do something like instead of is battle line, you can just be like reinforcement points, because this is something we haven't seen yet in design space, where like you get an extra reinforcement point for a unit of Hobgrots, right? Like that.
Yeah. So they could go up to 3 if they wanted to, while still not being battle line.
Right. Yeah. Like, so I think that's really good. I mean, I think that's some really smart design space, is like playing with reinforcement points. This is where I hope Gloomspite Gitz and Skaven go in the futures. They get bonus reinforcement points or something like that. Like that feels like a very Gitsy Skaven-y thing, where like maybe you're still confined to like the other list construction stuff, because like third rail of fucking with list construction, right, of being like, oh no, you get 5 battle, or you get blah, whatever. They mess with it though. Behemoth become battle line. They mess with that stuff a little bit, but the reinforcement stuff feels like that's a really easy slam dunk space to like play with, especially with enhancements, especially with like maybe battalions down the line or something like that. Like if you take this battalion, you get 1 reinforcement point, or I don't know.
Yeah, you could make a horde army pay its command trait or artifact to gain an extra reinforcement point,
or 2 or 3, whatever. Like you run the math on it, and you go like, yeah, I think Gitz can stand to have 2 extra reinforcement points if they take this sub allegiance, right? Like, so you don't necessarily get it for like Troggoths. Or, like, because maybe for whatever reason they think, reinforcing Troggoths too much is OP. But, like, yeah, the thing that's, like, what it should be designed for is, like, having 1,000,000 fucking goblins on the table. So, like, yeah, the goblin sub-allegiance says you get bonus, 2 bonus reinforcement points if you take this trait or something. I mean, that just feels like a really I think you've accidentally struck oil here with this one, Carnith, where you were going with it. Like the battle line thing, but like even just if we go like a little bit more like 1 more degree refined to like looking at his reinforcement points, I submit that I'm the developer now. Like you came to me with your designed artifact, and I said, yeah, but what if we did reinforcement points? And then like you curse me and go, yeah, that's a great idea, but like secretly you go home after work and you're like, fuck our lead developer, that guy sucks. But by the way, this is like a lot closer to like how design and development pipelines work, by the way. Someone who's been on the inside. I feel like I cut both of you off there. So Kruleboyz, you had 2 artifacts, or you had two enhancinations in there.
Yeah, so I'm all done with Kruleboyz. I had the can't be targeted within by abilities range text within 12. And then making those Hobgrots battle line, or with the extra reinforcement points, but also mainly giving them the venom encrusted weapons, so they can just be chaff that actually can just, this unit actually wants to go out and stab things. Makes it a little more hammery, I guess. Yeah. They throw a decent amount of dice.
Yeah, right on. Vaniljsas, your thought on either of those?
My favorite thing, out of those 2, I would immediately choose the venom encrusted and battle line one. Because, like I said at the start, I want to change how to build the army and how to play the army.
Yeah.
So he's giving you an enhancement which lets you change, because you're going, okay, my battle line is now this. What does that open up for list building?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something amazing to see. And we've seen how much it can change an army when you look at, particularly at something like KO. Because the first iteration of KO, it was Arcanaut Company only as battle line, and it really stifled creativity in the army. Whereas now almost everything can be battle line under the right situation, be it a general unlocking it, be it a sub-faction unlocking it.
Yeah.
And it just means that you see, or you can see, much more varied armies, because somebody might go, well, I like boats, so they take lots of skyships, or I like jetpacks, so they bring lots of balloon boys, you know?
Well, I mean,
And that's something I would love to see for every army. I want to see every aspect of every army on the table.
right, right. Right. I mean, I saw like one of the old like data points was like how many Mortek Guard are taken, at like a tournament, and it's like we have 2 battle line. Like what the hell do you expect? Like we're gonna take they're pigeonholed into taking, like, a lot of people want to take stalkers. There's no like there's by the time you get through like your like the gymnastics of your points, you might be able to take a unit of stalkers. But if you're like that Timmy out there who's just like, I just want to run all stalkers, you have no idea. But they don't have any avenue to get to that. For me, it's about enabling like those avenues to get into those places for those armies. Like, it might not be the most efficient, the most spike thing in the world, but if you let people do it, you'd be surprised how much more often you see it, right? Because we tend to gravitate towards like what's efficient, just kind of on accident, like as the water level raises in the game.
Well, if those OBR rumors that we've heard for what a year now almost is true, you got those Mortek archers. They could be another battle line option. I hope they don't get mortal wounds on shooting.
No, rend. Even if it's like rend one, one rend more
right.
or something like that. Yeah,
and that's would be sensible. But there's also the rumor of like some dude on a big monster. Make that the thing that unlocks stalkers. And look at, you got a new fun centerpiece if you don't want to run Catacross. Which, I mean, a shame, but I mean, there are people out there.
Yeah, there's people out there who are like just not, I don't know, in their right state of mind regarding how excellent Catacross's model is. No, you're right. I didn't mean to cut you off. You have more thoughts there on that.
Imagining like a 10-inch tall stalker with even more arms and swords.
Oh, I want Lord Goro. I want Prince Goro the Stalker, where he's just got even more arms, and he's like a huge, he's got like a hecatonchery amount of arms, and it's a nightmare to put together.
What was the dude from Underworld? Kanan Mir?
Yeah, Mir Kanan. Yeah.
Yeah, like, isn't he just like? I thought he was a stalker. He's like twice the size of any dude.
Yeah, he's got they went back to their sort of pseudo pseudo Japanese, pseudo like Pan Asian sort of vibes to him. And he's got the little stilt feet, where like in the the Heihachi slippers from Tekken, where he's like got the little stilts on the slipper. He's kind of got that going on. He's got this executioner's axe. Yeah, he's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and also he's got really cool, fun rules. What is it? 6s to hit, or like 2 mortal, or 1 plus D3 mortal wounds. So he's at least always doing D3 or 2 or something like that. He's got fun rules. I like that dude. If I played OBR, he'd be in my list.
He is in my OBR lists like right now. Like he's just like, for the points, his value is just too good to pass up. Like it's just I mean, there's so much space with, I don't know. Like, I think OBR got the kiss of death with the White Dwarf article, though. Like it's the kiss of death. We're not getting a new battle tome.
Yeah, seeing that, I was like, oh, that's a rip.
Yep, rip. Oops, all OBR show. Yeah, sorry everybody. It's an OBR show now.
I don't even play OBR, but I still have fun.
Yeah, no, they're cool. I mean, that's the thing, is like when you find, like, when you can respect the passion other people have for their thing, like, you'd be surprised how easy it is to like riff on each other. Good try, Kernigget. Not going to happen. So as far as the cloak, because I don't think we talked about the cloak too much, which you brought up. I think the cloak is like that's one of those like just kind of cool artifacts. I don't think there's anything wrong with having like just interesting, efficient, good artifacts either. Like I don't want to poop. Like I talk about like the Johnny Timmy stuff a little bit. I think it's, if I was worried that what they did with Amulet of Destiny was what they were going to do with Amulet of Destiny. Like just it took away like an efficient artifact and just like cut the head, like this kills the crab. Like you're never going to see it again now. So they went from seeing 2 artifacts from the generic artifacts book to seeing one of them.
And it shows up in every list I've ever made. there's no reason to never not take it.
Yep. There's always going to be a best thing. So like the only way to really fight the best thing factor is to make other good things. It's that simple. All right. So Vaniljsas, you haven't unfurled an artifact or an enhancement in a while. What do you got?
So actually, similar to how Carnith with that cloak was actually trying to protect foot heroes, at least in my local scene, I have a few players who have particularly good shooting, shall we say, Thunder Lizards and Long Strikes in particular. So I was thinking about that whole small hero thing as well, because sometimes it's nice to take that infantry force with the small hero. I shamelessly ripped off the the goblins here. Can't remember the unit. The guys with the spinning balls.
Fanatics.
Loon Smasher Fanatics.
Yeah. Okay. So I did cunning as Mork because they're supposed to be more cunning these Kruleboyz. So the killer boss has learned the most cunning way to lead is by hiding in plain sight. During deployment, you may declare that this killer boss is hiding in plain sight. Note down a Gut Ripper's unit for him to hide in and place him in reserve. At the start of the movement/charge phase, the killer boss may reveal his ploy and be placed within 3 inches of the unit. Additionally, whilst because I want to get an additionally in there, I feel like
Yeah.
destruction deserves some. After seeing how many LRL got, we need some.
In addition to the addition.
Yeah.
Whilst the killer boss is hiding in a unit, they confer and must use all part of the plan to any units within range that take a battle shock test, and the player must declare that something funny is going on. So what this would do is you would be allowed to hide him in the unit, which means that he can't be targeted, essentially, which is a brilliant bonus. But if somebody was to, say, spread fire, they could discover which unit he's in because he would, no matter what he wanted to do, use that ability and basically reveal that there's something going on with that unit that isn't normal. So that would be the disadvantage, is suddenly he would reveal himself. Whereas when I think of goblins, they can walk around with all those blocks of goblins and you'll never know where the fanatics are until they want to use them.
Demir Grot asks, can Kruleboyz deep strike? I don't.
With super sneaky, they can. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not as good as a normal deep strike because you have to use it before the first battle round, but after players have determined who's going to go first. So you could like throw your bolt boys of like, haha, I'm going to shoot this unit, and then your opponent could be like, all right, cool, but I won deployment, so I'm going to go first, and they can just shoot off your bolt boys. So it's all right.
And the usual combo that's used for that one is super sneaky and the dirty trick covered in mud. So what you do is you redeploy the bolt boys into cover that is also in range of your enemy, because they'll have a 27-inch range if you're in big yellows. And then on a 4-up, they're not visible whilst in cover to be shot at, so it protects them quite a lot.
I like that. Good combo. Really, really Johnny of it, actually. So yeah, Carnith, thoughts on the stashing dudes in unit trait?
Oh, I love it. I actually like that it plays a little mind game. It does make him feel like it's a lot more Morkier too. If these are supposed to be the Morks versus the Ironjawz and Bonesplitterz Gorks. It's fun. I always take a hero anyways, and I'm actually not super big on always just taking super sneaky because I always end up taking a noisy racket. That -1 to wound is just too good anyways. But no, I would probably like have that unit of like Gut Rippers up in center and just be like, oh, well, everything's touching, so you got to go kill this entire unit off, and they're like, you're gonna have to pour a lot of damage into a unit that's not gonna do a whole lot, but it's actually making my army like battle shock again effectively.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like that. Really cool. I'm a big fan of like the sort of like assassin ambush rule. So anytime I see that show up, I'm like, yeah, or like variations thereof. Yeah. So I think that does it for Kruleboyz, right? So we've done the iron. Or no, you've got another
We've
artifact.
done Boys. We need to do Ironjawz.
We still got to do. We've saved the best for last, right?
Well, if we want to do that, do you want me to cover my bone splitter ones then, so that we can end off with just only the best?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
All right, so I'll make them real quick. So this one was a utility piece I tried creating. Honestly, there was nothing really good to kind of do. So it kind of does one of two things, and this one kind of changes their identity a little bit. So one was choose Gork's or Mork's Breath at the hero phase. If you choose Gork's Breath, it essentially makes the bearer a War Chanta to give one of their units +1 damage. It's all the same stipulation, melee weapons only, wholly within 15 inches. It's literally War Chanta. Mork's Breath was actually taking the Plague Bearer ability that I think the Poxbringer does, where he picks a unit, and if they're within range of a Plague Bearer, they kind of explode. So that's Mork's Breath, because the unit gets stuck in, and then every unit that's or every enemy unit within 3 inches of them would take D3. So it's like it can be like a once per game kind of added utility of, all right, I need this unit to do big damage, or all right, now this unit of orcs got there, and now they just run into like a quick frenzy.
Warlord Joel weighing in here, he heard Bonesplitterz and he's just like, Bonesplitterz, what? That's broken as fuck with Icebone. See, I'm not familiar with I know it's going to surprise everyone, but I don't know a ton about like the Savage Orcs particular specific subfaction too much, or other armies.
I think Icebone's is 6s to wound, just go straight to mortal wounds. It's kind of like the Kruleboyz weapon. We could make it like one per game. Yeah, if a unit of pigs goes crazy on damage for one turn. Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that do tons of damage, right? Like, you know.
Yeah, they're fine to do it.
Yeah, right on.
I'll go with the other one real quick then. It's the Primordial Axe. If this wielder slays a model in the combat phase, add 1 to the damage characteristic. This is cumulative. In addition, if the wielder has already gained damage on the Primordial Axe, it heals all wounds at the start of the battle shock phase. We get an Orc Professor Badass who just as it deals damage, it gets bigger and bigger.
Please limit it as well to the Savage Big Boss.
No, it could go on any of them.
Well, I would want it on him just because
you would, because he's already got the big axe.
He's swinging and he's getting bigger and more aggressive this whole time. I'd love it.
Yeah, as he's doing damage, his axe is just suddenly getting bigger and bigger.
He's a little hero as well. The response, like if someone was like, "Oh my god, he's at 8 damage," is you would go, "Just kill him. He's like got 6 wounds or something. He'll just die."
Well, this is. Go ahead. Sorry. I mean this one has the Sword of Judgment or the Sword of Japan like vibe to it, where it's just, oh god, we're gonna have to listen to Ruby Rod here for 20 iterations of Ruby Rod being Ruby Rod. Everybody enjoy that. That's how exciting this axe is. See, so far this is kind of one of my favorite artifacts so far. I love some of the design space we went into with a couple of these artifacts and traits, but this one's just fun, right? Like it's just fun. You're gonna put it on a little ass kicker, and he's just gonna go around trying to like myrtleize people.
Okay, he's gonna start off tagging a combat. He's gonna kill 1 model. That's all you need him to do, and then he's actually suddenly at damage 3. And then he's gonna go like pop something else off, and then you're like, he's at damage 4. And you're like, oh, whatever. But he's gonna hit that turn. You're gonna wah, and he's gonna go after something big. And it's like, by the way, like he's already hit like 2 little combats. Like, we're at damage 6, and you're like, shh, wait, what? I should I'm out of command points. Like he's gonna sneak up on you.
It's really funny because there's gonna be like that turn 4 where like you kind of like lost track of him in the shuffle, and then like what I like to call the breakdown. That's sort of like the late game where you start like to do the scramble for like. You're like, okay, if I do this and this, like I can win the game. I want to set myself up for turn 5. So you're starting to do the scramble, and like if this dude's just sitting around, you're like, the damage what? Like you're just. I love that. I love those little moments. I think that's great.
absolutely love this one.
Oh,
Like if it was in Ironjawz, it'd be broken as hell. If it was in Kruleboyz, it would be broken as hell. But in Bonesplitterz, where your heroes are all smaller, it's amazing.
mhm.
Like I love giving that little hero the moment of glory, you know. Like you mentioned, Sword of Japan. I used to have that on a loom boss on Giant Squig. Not the Mangler Squig, but the giant squig. Like he's about yay big, and like he comes at you, and you're there like, oh yeah, he's gonna kill your big unit. And you're there like, what? And he's like, yeah, he's gonna eat his red cap mushroom now, so he can re-roll his hits.
Mm.
It's like I'm just looking for sixes here. I've got like 6 attacks. Hopefully this works.
Yeah, that was my my Beast Lord, because like in Beasts of Chaos, you'd end up with like so many like you'd have like two 3 battalions just cuz like you know, like I don't really feel like running 300 models, so I'm going to take 2 battalions. And so you'd have like always have that one extra artifact kind of laying around. You'd probably scoop up the Knowing Eye and an Aether Quartz Brooch if you were on the summoning plan, which I often was. You know, I know Gave Spawn, everybody, you're like adding me in the future comments, but no, all heard, baby. Like I gotta like just if anyone's played Bayonetta, there's a scene where she just goes guns, 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 and they just like open up a coffin and start throwing guns everywhere. It was like that, but with Ungors, gores. That was my all heard army. But I would put so I would just have like an extra artifact kind of left over, and you're like, okay, yeah, I could put like an ethereal amulet on a, let's check the notes here, a Great Bray Shaman. No, but you'd have this little unit tax of having to have a Beast Lord, so I throw the Sword of Judgment on him. Then he had like a little derpy way of getting reroll hits, so it was like it felt like a combo, and then suddenly like this little like 80-point idiot is one-shotting a Keeper of Secrets that one time. Because like everyone's ignoring the little 80-point idiot foot hero guy that doesn't even give a good buff to the Bestigors. They're just gonna try to deal with the Bestigors. And so like no, all 20 Bestigors are totally dead. So anyway, I roll combat for my Beasts of Chaos Beast Lord here. That's 3 6s. That's 5 5 4. That's 14 mortal wounds.
I enjoyed putting the Sword of Japan on the Contorted Epitome when it came out. It was like one of the few things that was like actually surprising, like actually super fighty. You're like, that's a bunch of 3x4 neg 1 damage. Like, but it's 9 attacks and it can get reroll ones. So, and all it is just 2 heralds sitting on like this coiling mirror. So my mind was always that one would take a swing and then toss it to the other like twin, and they're just like taking turns slicing and just passing it back and forth. So it was always that cinematic thing. I'm like, no, I gotta have it. Like they gotta throw the sword back and forth to each other.
Yeah. Beast Lord was 6 attacks. Like, sure, I like those odds. You know, like that's at least 1 proc. Like, let's go. So now that Ruby Rod has stopped like oohing us, thank you so much for Jupes. Thank you so much for dropping a 20 pack of gift subs off in chat there for everyone in chat, gang. What do we got here? Carnith, first time viewer. See, you usually watch my shit on YouTube. Like that's where I recognize your name from.
That, and I'm usually in a Haywo's chat.
Haywo's chat, yeah. I love the show. I can't help it. Sword of Japan lives on in First Prince with the epitome.
Yeah, 5 up, do D3 mortal wounds, and this time it's on anything. Sword of Japan was only on monsters and heroes.
Yeah. No, and that I just to reset it, like that's kind of what the big axe has. It has that feel to me. You know, it's just that.
Yeah.
Like anytime you invoke like how awesome Sword of Japan is in somebody, I think you're in the right design space. Vaniljsas, we already got your thoughts on the Bonesplitterz artifacts, right?
I love that second one the most. I love it. It would actually tempt me to, maybe buy some Bonesplitterz.
Get at least one, put it in Big Wah. Who cares? It's the only Bonesplitterz that can dame Big Wah.
Walk up the table next to my Ironjawz Mega Boss on foot. who's got the destroyer, and I'm just gonna have two idiots running it.
You gotta model them a little bit like a Macho Man, like Orky Savage, and Hulk Orkkin. I don't know. Ork Hogan, like.
There you go. That's it. Ork Hogan.
Yeah, Ork Hogan and yeah, Macho Man, Orky Savage. Yeah.
Or Orc Flair.
Orc Flair, yeah, just like like the mega powers. Fantastic. Yeah, so now we're moving on to, we've saved the best for last. You've got how many IJ artifacts do you have left, or enhancements do you have, Carnith? You've got 3, and then you've got 2. So we alternate Carnith lead, and we'll go back and forth with them.
All right, so I'll go with, I think is probably a fun one. It's a good utility piece. It's a Mork's voice box, aka it's a big rock. It's foot boss only, and you can use the roar monstrous action.
Love it.
Yep.
So it's just simple. Like he says, Mork's talking now, and he just whips the rock at somebody and just stuns them.
Instead of a roar, he just clobbers you with a rock. I love it.
No, that's great. There was a corn artifact that was this good. I love that space. That's so good. Like, just excellent. All right. I think no notes, right? Vaniljsas, like just perfect.
No, I just love it. It's hilarious.
I love the flavor of it too. Like, it's just a rock.
Yeah, it's just a rock. Like, he found a rock. It's the voice of Mork, and he's just gonna whip it at somebody.
Perfect. Vaniljsas, what you got?
Okay, so this one I sort of gave the game away at the start, and so for me, part of the narrative of Ironjawz is that the reason their armor is brightly coloured is because they want to be seen, and part of the reason they ride Gorgrunters is because they want to get there quicker than everyone else so they can get stuck into the fight. Again, this is why I used to use Griffonian gauntlets, because to me there's nothing more orky than getting more stuck in than the other orcs. You're leading. Even if everybody got there first, you got deeper into the enemy line.
Yeah.
So that's good. What its effect is going to be. So I called it the banner of the best. And it's a true Ironjaw knows that being seen and getting stuck in are the main things that matter in a fight. And this audacious banner makes sure you're seen. The bearer may pile in an additional 3 inches when picked to fight. I would be more than happy, due to the thematic nature of the narrative, for enemies to just get +1 to hit you as well. Why not? Look, they can see you so easy. You've put this gigantic banner on your back so that it inspires you to charge deeper. Might as well let them hit you better as well.
Okay.
They're all dead after you hit anyway because you're an Ironjawz.
So my feedback on this one: if you're getting is it a 3-inch pile in, or is it an activation and pile in? This is very
I would do it so that it adds 3 inches like the old Griffonian gauntlets did, rather than allowing you to activate from outside of 3 inches. Because I wouldn't want you to put this on a cabbage, run up and sit 6 inches away, then suddenly pile into combat. That
right.
For me is not an Ironjawz way of playing. That's I want you to charge, and I want you to just plow straight through.
Yeah, so I mean, perfectly stated. That's exactly where I would go with that, because the 6-inch activation and pile in to me isn't trying to get stuck in harder. It's trying to be cheeky. This orc is charging forward. So mechanically speaking, this is one of those places where we gotta have the design conversation. The more powerful thing would be activation. And if you saw that artifact out there and someone's like, well, it's not activating, so it's not good, right? They're going to be their mind is about to say those words out loud without recognizing the nuance of design that you just put into it, which is, for you, this thing is about charging harder and diving in deeper than anybody else's lines. And I think that's a very important distinction. So I'm glad you say that. If you're going to take the get shot better, I want you to have a 6-up shrug. I don't believe in giving penalties to artifacts de facto. You give penalties when it starts to do something unfair or extra. Does that make sense?
Maybe it gives you +1 damage as well. I'll
Oh,
take that.
yeah. So plus
So
1 damage, but now you get hit. But now you get hit
it
easier.
feeds into being the best as well. You're gonna hit people harder.
Yeah.
You're gonna punch harder into the line.
Or you have +1 attack because you hit them with the banner.
It adds range to your attacks because you've attached an axe blade to the end of the banner.
Yeah. I mean, that's very orky to me. Like where you're starting to go here is like you have like bonus reach or like an extra attack because you're hitting them with the banner. Like, so
Actually, I converted one of my Ard boys like that with the Blood Bowls team. Because the way the Blood Bowls guy like runs, I've like put the banner in his hand, so he's like running as if he's gonna spear someone with the banner.
I like this artifact. This is beautiful. What do you think, Carnith?
Oh, it's good. I think it's nice and thematic. Encourages creativity in the modeling to make the banner. You know, like what is this banner going to look like that everyone's going to be like, I got to go after this orc.
There's a totem in the Savage Orcs. It's one of the kits. They have this like just massive totem, as I recall. It looks like a huge club. Like I can just imagine you're going to go into that like that Savage Orcs like model range, clip off that thing, and then like grab that, put it on like your like war boss, and then like model a flag green stuff a flag onto this like huge club thing, and like you just have this like insane outrageous thing. That's like why Thermal Rider Cloak was an amazing artifact. Because not only was it like kind of like what +3 inches to move and you get flying, quality effect, right? Quality effect. Like opened up some list ideas. Like now you're putting it on like an orc, like a war boss with a thermal rider cloak, right? Like so now he's flying and like just like zipping around the field and like trying to like punch stuff up. Like really great artifact. But the thing that was the best about it was watching people model capes onto tanks and shit in Cities of Sigmar. like everyone. Go ahead.
Flying steam tank, which I think Ben Johnson had done himself on like Twitter at one point.
Yeah.
Well, I think Vince also did it. And although what's funny is that we also talk about that design space of, you know, yeah, people are getting that +4 movement because they want that fly. People are putting on the steam tank for consistency. It's at least moving 6 inches. That's all I ask for.
Right. Yeah, Thermal Rider Cloak was another one. It did like it's the same category of like sort of Japan. Like it did nothing wrong. it didn't deserve this. Like I get it, Aether brooch or Aether Quartz brooch probably went a little out of bounds. I know that everyone like hated Ethereal Amulet. Like those two, fine. But these other beautiful children were too good for this world. Like, and they didn't deserve this.
I mean, those other old artifacts tend to show up in Cities of Sigmar, so they're going to be back in one way or other.
Right. Yeah. IJs should have a horned helmet artifact that gives them a flying headbutt attack. Yeah, maybe.
I thought about artifacts that would add an attack profile. Like that happens all the time in 40k. I don't know why that's outside of the design space for AOS trinkets. Like I honestly thought it was silly when one of the realm artifacts was like, you get like a bow, and you're like, hell yeah! On 6s, you do a mortal wound. I'm like, all right, well, it sucks. Cool, I'm never taking it. Like this isn't a bow.
There was
I know
actually. Go ahead.
But because somebody in chat has mentioned a headbutt, I think I should just go ahead with my second and last artifact.
No. You gotta edge it. You gotta save it. Carnith. Ooh, teasing. That's a tease.
Also, I just want to say to Warlord Joel, Slaanesh did nothing wrong.
It's all Slaanesh's fault. Slaanesh did nothing wrong. I kind of agree. They got way over nerfed and just the way they approached quote unquote fixing that army. That's the anti what the Great Enhancing about. The Great Enhancing is about being passionate about the army and thinking. Like, making stuff for an army that a player who plays the army wants to play with. Like, I don't know how to, like, put that more explicitly in design. You know, when you release these books and it's just like, who thought this was, like, how they wanted to play this army? Or like, that sort of disharmony that happens. Like, what happened to Slaanesh was just, they overcorrected, they listened to Facebook, rage, they overcorrective steered, and then they release something that I don't think anyone was like truly passionate about when they made it. So, I'll defend Slaanesh too.
Thank you. I'm glad to have someone else in the court too.
Yeah. Caleb Kane, Ethereal Amulet was fine. Welcome to my 10-page dissertation. I mean, I agree with you.
Nash was the god of access, so at the end of the day, if you tell me it's too powerful, I think the god's doing it right.
I don't know, flying headbutt, fly when you charge plus some sort of damage bonus. Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Caleb Kane just exploding. All of the RDP is being spent right now. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
you got Lord
10,
Whale,
11, 12,
Carnith,
13,
you got everyone in
15,
there.
16, 17, 18. 18 and counting. 18,000 RDP being spent. Everyone's paying the bone tithe today. To remind y'all that chat gang ain't none to fuck with. So, no. Still popping off. So I'm gonna put a cooldown on this. I've decided now. This was the moment. Like, now that it's prohibitive for like catching back up with chat, like, okay, this is the moment. You guys y'all keep doing you. You keep going. Carnith, what's your next artifact?
So I wanted to really try to come up with something for the shaman. As I mentioned earlier, like no one takes the shaman, so the shaman's got to do something. So my thought was give him basically an artifact that gives him utility. What would that utility be? Pick an orc unit, and specifically an Orruk unit, so he can go have fun in Big Wa, because we should see more of that. That has three or less wounds, so no Gorgruntas. Would, although, catch the pigs in Bonesplitterz, but then again, if it's going in Big Wa, I think it's not that too bad. That has 10 or less models, that has not been set up during the previous hero phase. That unit can run and charge. So if it is a Mighty Destroyer unit, yes, they could move 4, specifically to be brutes on Ardboys. Can't be run on the Mega Boss. Can't go on pigs. Can't go anything else. It's literally just brutes and Ardboys, to basically give them that 4-inch move out of Mighty Destroyers, but then they can run and charge. Gives them a little bit more extra movement. Gives them something more to do. If that felt like we needed to bring it back to just a unit that hasn't been reinforced, hey, that's fine too. But I wanted to give him something, so there was a reason to bring him. Like, yeah, it's a strong utility, but like, got to make those other models more attractive. Like, yeah. I know Ardboys have a place. They don't have a place in my army. They're the fuggliest models. You can ask anyone in the Halo Discord. I run the Oops All Brutes army. It is a it's a Mega Boss and Walkrusha, 2 War Chantas and 40 Brutes. Mm-hmm. It's like 1970. It's or 1990. It's the perfect amount of like points. Yeah, we're there.
I see. I want to reinforce and restate that like artifacts, like a resource like this that you're spending on your army, because this is a selection resource and so on, it's allowed to be good. It's just like when there's a 1,000-point hero, yeah, it should probably be pretty good. It's half your army. Like you know what? It's trendy. I'm gonna shit on Morathi. The problem with Morathi, besides how just anathema, I think, having a damage cap in a game where shit should die, like, I will defend tank armies, like, right to be a tanky army, because I do think that you gotta have, like, you know, you should have, like, 1 tank army for every, like, 4 great offensive armies or something like that. Like, the game shouldn't be more tank armies than offense armies, if that makes sense, because in a general sense, the game should be moving towards people taking models off the table. Right? Like, we should skew towards the game being more offensive than defensive, because that just makes for a better play experience, right? Like, it feels like the game's progressing when models are being removed from the table. That being said, like, so I say all that because I'm like, I will defend some tank armies should exist, but they should be outweighed by offensive armies. The tank army should feel meaningfully tanky. But saying, like, no, you straight up don't take shit off the table, that's garbo. Right? Like, that's where we go. Like, you're going against, like, I even like regeneration effects. I think they're fun because I play death. Of course I'd defend it. But, like, at least my opponent, like, gets to watch my models explode and stuff, and they get to go, like, they feel like they've had some, you know, like, they get that hit. When you hit Morathi with everything you have and she just goes, nah. Like, that's the bad. But honestly, the thing that makes it the most egregious is her points. They're so much lower than more fair shit Archaon and Nagash are doing. Right? Like, it's crazy town to me.
I mean, it's just like what?
Of
For
course,
Archaon,
flamey explosion skeletons are fucking awesome. What are you talking? They're awesome as hell. Like corpse explosions. Bow to hell. Like, yes, more shit should explode when it dies. Get at me at MR_MEPH. Like, sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. No, I just look at Archaon. Like, yeah, everyone's like scared of him because, like, oh man, you could roll those 2 6s and you could destroy any model in the game. You're like, yeah, that's cool as shit, and I expect that out of that model. But like, what else is he? Like, yeah, he's got a bunch of special rules, but like, yeah, I think he's fair. You look at Marathi, you're like, all right, what do you get out of Marathi? All right, well, you get Ren 2, you get high damage, you get high mobility, you get spell casting. Even if you want to try going for the easier target, -1 to hit because lookouts are like, she's just got like buff after buff after buff. Oh, she can't heal. Cool, but like you can easily go 4 rounds without ever like touching her.
2 models. Like, that's like, isn't that like a little bit of the elephant in the room? Is she's 2 fucking models for the cost of 1 that can project power twice, or not twice, but in 2 places, which feels.
Yeah, so like little Marathi is going to hold you back objective, counting as 2 models, whilst launching spells across the table. Whilst big monster Marathi counts as 5 models and is just running into the middle, because why the hell not? She's invulnerable.
Yeah. Well, frothing at the mouth, angry. We had a
hate on Marathi channel now.
Yeah, we're just hating on Marathi. Again. My hate would be highly tempered if she cost half the army, right? Like, if she was half the cost of the entire army, it'd be like, oh yeah, okay. Well, now you have to make a meaningful decision. Do I want my army to be like the better army, where like it's it's more composed, it's got a lot more stuff going on, or do I want to take like the slightly worse version of my army but have an OP god model, which is kind of where like I think Nagash fit very nicely for a little spell there. It's like my army's better if I don't take Nagash, but like you feel like he's beating the crap out of you because sure, he's a god model. And there is a caveat, an asterisk on that, is there are certain armies that just can't deal with a single god model, right? Like Archaon, Nagash, like even if Marathi were balanced, like there are some armies out there that just like they look at their battle tome and they go, building a like feasible army, I don't have the tools in my toolbox to deal with 1 god model. Like, they just don't pass that litmus test. But with that caveat in mind, usually it's like the best build of the armies, like, maybe shouldn't be the god model. But, like, they should be viable. That's the trade-off you pay for playing with your god model that feels like a god. It's just you don't, you're not the OP version of your army. Your best version of your army is, like, the like, more, like, ingenious list building with a bunch of, like, cool little mechanics and, like, little synergies built up with, like, that's the better version of your army. That's fine. You should, any centerpiece for any army, whether it's like a Catacross or a Gordrak or a Cabbage, the non-named version, like like the armies that have all these like sweet centerpieces, Black Coach, like sweet centerpieces, you should feel Keepers of Secrets. Whatever the army is, your centerpiece should feel more than playable every single time. Poor Beast of Chaos. Gorgons look cool. I can never run them.
So, all right. So I always have to kind of plug my friend's Beast of Chaos. He converted every single model in his Beast of Chaos. Everything is converted. There's not a single model that is, I took it out of the kit and I built it. And like he's got some of the sweetest looking dragon ogres. Like he made them out of flesh eater crypt horrors. And what's the Griff Chargers? Like they're kit bashed together. And he's done like a ton of work, and I feel so bad. Like his Gorgons actually do a little bit of work for him, but like I send 5 brutes and I'm like, all right, well I'm gonna go kill your Gorgon now. I'm sorry, it's lived. And it made it into the danger zone. And like it's just they existed near brutes and they're just going to die now.
Yeah, it explodes
and that's a shame. Like, they shouldn't be that way.
They did the race to the bottom thing with Beast of Chaos. And this is the problem with the army. Well, not the problem with the army. There's blah. I love the army. I love it. I'd play it tomorrow and like beat people I have no business beating because like it's got the tools, but like the mental bandwidth you use running that army is just it's so high because you can't make mistakes. Like you just there's no give to it. But like they race to the bottom with the Gorgon scroll, and at the end of the like, yeah, it does a lot more damage than maybe it should for its point cost, but like it's made out of paper, it explodes. I would way rather it cost more and was like awesome, you know what I'm saying, than it cost less and was like kind of good. Like I want my monsters to be like chonky 400 point like slap shit ass kickers, that like you look at it and you're like, oh fuck, that can't get into my lines, or it's just gonna shred everything, and then like you have to actually like game around it. Whereas like you kind of describe the opposite. You're like, oh no, it entered the danger zone. 5 brutes charged it and like fucking like broke it over their knee like so, and you got a bonus victory point for your trouble because it's a fucking monster.
Yeah, just like because like looking at it, it was just like, oh, I mean, if it gets into my lines and I decide not to attack it, it's going to kill 2 brutes. Can't have that. My brutes are worth a lot more.
Not 2 brutes.
So I'm going to kill it and smashing and bashing and go murder the rest of everything else that I'm in combat with. Amazing. It's actually just an easy smashing and bashing target.
The sad thing is when you say 2 brutes, you mean 2 brutes and not 2 units of brutes. It's that pathetic.
And yeah, like I in a tournament, I didn't activate them because they were in range of.
All right, I want you to keep going with this story, and then you got to tell people your favorite battle tomes while I go and get more ice.
Sure.
Right.
Didn't get to target them right away because they got hit by the stupid Taurus spell, and Gorgon actually got to swing and actually did like killed 4 brutes. It was like, wow, this is embarrassing. But when it does work, it does work. All right, so I'm supposed to say favorite books, like battle tomes.
I'm not sure. I don't think he. Which did he ask?
Wait, it's me, Jubes. Carnith, tell us what books you like. Oh, favorite novels. Crap. So back in the day, I was a sucker for A Song of Ice and Fire, but that series will never end at this point.
It can get in the trash now.
Yeah.
The trash
now. We saw the ending. It wasn't good. Let's see. I liked Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time was good. I haven't seen the Amazon series yet. I really haven't read much of like Warhammer stuff because most of it just seems like you really gotta sift through a lot of bad to get to the one diamond in the rough.
I didn't get along with Wheel of Time personally. I chugged through book 1, and I guess because I've read so much like epic fantasy before getting to Wheel of Time, I was like, oh yeah, this is just this, that, and this put together. I get that it's the source of those things, but the problem is because I approached it in the wrong order, it just didn't hit with me.
Fair. My problem ended up being with Wheel of Time. I never got to finish the series. I just stopped liking the main character. The character I actually liked was Perrin. Perrin was much more grounded in everything. There was Matt. Matt just seemed like he didn't have a purpose, and I was like, it's a Matt chapter, and it's like, all right, we're gonna find something else that's interesting. Matt just happened to be there, and then Rand was just annoying.
Yeah.
But like, it does make really good like feminist like fantasy, like a lot of empowered like characters, and that was good. It was just the characters we were supposed to care about, I stopped caring about. Like, give me more of I can't even remember half the characters' names at this point. It's been forever since I read these books. Favorite part of Mass Effect 3. I'm a Tally stan, so anything.
Yes, Tally, best waifu.
Oh hell yeah! Like I was sad couldn't romance her in 1 and romance her in 2 and stayed true in 3.
I love that Jupes was like, Carnith, tell us what books you like, and it was just like, I'm gonna store this for when I need to go like use the restroom and get more ice, and that thank you for giving me that, Jupes, giving me that like layup earlier on. That was perfect.
Do you not like that bit of Mass Effect 3 where you were in this like open chamber room sort of thing, and there were three colors and you had to pick one?
Yeah, the ending of it, but I was
yeah.
colorblind, so I could only discern one ending from all three.
I mean, they're the same ending. Let's be real. Just do you like it in red, blue, or green? Don't worry, and you're not missing anything. I think didn't they go back and actually like fix the ending? And
Apparently,
I think it massively, but I never went back
I thought I went back and played it, and I still couldn't tell the difference. I'm like, so what did they change?
okay, so who tried to do this? Who tried to do the Mass Effect thing? Because I'm not giving you guys credit in chat, gang, for unlocking the achievement, because I'm about to fucking tee off here. Okay,
It was
chat gang. No, chat gang doesn't get it. Carnith and Vaniljsas get the credit here. Okay. Mass Effect 3 was bad before the ending.
I will say this: the best part of Mass Effect 3 is the only part of the game they decided not to port over when they remastered it, and it's called the multiplayer.
Yeah,
the multiplayer is the best part of that game. I could play it for hours.
I hated multiplayer so much.
Well, what?
No, you're both right. For like, the multiplayer was very well polished and good, and Vaniljsas, I too hated it because I didn't play 200 fucking hours of Mass Effect 1 and 2 by my fucking self to suddenly play a story-driven game with a bunch of fucking randos on the internet. Fuck! Just release a separate fucking Mass Effect cash cow game called like Mass Effect Arena and fucking do that. Why the fuck did you ruin my single player experience by diverting half the budget into a multiplayer I didn't ask for in a trilogy? Fuck! Ah! There, everyone. I got very performatively mad for you. Are you happy? Are you happy? Do you like me like this, chat gang? Does this make you happy?
You're like 2/3 of the way through the campaign, you know. And I mean 2/3 through the last game, not 2/3 through the trilogy.
Yeah.
2/3 of the way through the game.
Sorry if I blew your guys' headphones out there. I was trying to.
I need to, I guess, go farm multiplayer so that I have the optimal score rather than just doing something in single player. Wow!
To get your 100% readiness.
I can now play as a character who isn't my fucking character in a stupid ass mode.
I mean, what horde modes were all the rage when that game came out. You had Gears having it, that had it. It was like the best part of that game. Like, it sucks. You're right. It should have been a separate game, and it's insulting that they took the only good part out of that game when they were like, "All right, by the way, here's the entire trilogy as one game." It's like, man, that's all I want to play again. That's what I want to relive out of the Mass Effect series, at least for out of 3. Like one's excellent despite the Mako. 2's good. 3 is competent. Story is not.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, so 3 is a well produced game. Does that make sense? Like it's all the things that like. If you have like $1 billion to make a game, everything I expect to happen happened. It's just not like a good story anymore. Like, and this was the story game that had like flawed but functional gameplay. And the Mako, whilst being, I'm gonna, in defense of the Mako, god damn you, chat gang, god damn you. In defense of the Mako, what I loved about Mass Effect 1 and 2 was Mass Effect 1. The game was big and expansive and a mystery, when the galaxy was big and expansive and a mystery to the human species, right? Like, because they weren't in part of the council yet, they didn't have a human specter yet, And so like the gameplay reflected that like everything's a mystery. So like the Mako going down and exploring the planets and stuff like that, making everything feel like a big mystery that's yet to be explored was great. And then 2 was all about like, okay, like it's not a mystery anymore, but now it's about sort of like filling it in with the culture and the like and everything else. So like the bulk of 2 was a lot more like relationship building. That's when we got like the awesome like play or whatever with the dudes who can't like who have no emotion, so they had to like do Shakespeare and they did the little emotive like 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 gleeful reply and like the whole fucking and they're doing Shakespeare like that and shit, and it's just this little backfill random like. And then like so you have this the first game is like the universe is big and unknown and you're exploring it, and then the second game now the universe is known but we're filling it in with all the details, and then the third game said fuck everything you knew about the first 2 games. You're just going to be on these railroad tracks of just going through and checking boxes of like uninteresting boring things that unmake everything you loved about the first 2.
I will also say
either.
Time is of the essence. There's a Reaper on Earth. Don't worry, you have 3 months.
I did anybody see that? Like I was forced to play Mass Effect 3 for a donation incentive. The thing I hammered the most was like how bad the story beats were. Like you can't put a Reaper on Earth, tell me thousands of people die every minute, and then have me fuck around the galaxy doing nothing with a character like Shepard. Shepard has punched a Reaper god in its mouth to death at this point. Right? We go through the Omega 3 relay and we go and fucking kill a Reaper god with our bare goddamn hands, and we've accidentally killed a previous Reaper. On accident, just like fucking hanging out. Just accidentally fucked with the other Reaper with the, Mass Effect 1. And you're telling me, like, Shepard's like, nah, you're right, dude. Like, I'm not going to want to go and punch all these Reapers that are... let alone the whole sitting on their ass for 6 months. Like, Shepard committed treason on purpose because the threat of the Reapers was too imminent to ignore. But like,
well, also, I mean, it kind of ends up cheapening also like PTSD. Like everything goes into like he saw that one kid's thing go down, and like that's his nightmares for like the next like 8 months.
Yeah,
it's
not Jensen
like,
dying, the first person dying under his command, not like his entire backstory, or her if you're playing FemShep. Like, you have like a backstory where you watch your whole colony get wiped out. Where's my story about that? Like, why wouldn't they made a whole point of like throughout the story, like when you select your backstory and stuff like that in Mass Effect 1, where they recount like, oh, Shepard, a little bit of a loose cannon though, and they do that thing where they recount your story to you as like part of the thing. Where is any of that in the third game? Like when you remember, if you took like Spacer or whatever, you accidentally run into like one of the old people from your gang in Mass Effect 2. If you took like, depending on what backstory you took, there was like little random like side quests that cropped up from your random backstory. None of it matters in the like third game to just shoehorn in this rando kid. Like, at least make it like the first person to die under your command, Jensen, which is a character we got to meet. And we watch him get blasted away in Mass Effect 1. That would have been a nice callback. Instead, like, and like, what, I don't know, like Ashley / like fucking Caden, because we leave them to get blown up with an entire fucking planet, and that feels like a big deal to me. No, some rando fucking kid. I had the backstory where, was a kid, watched my whole village destroyed, got saved by like random drifters.
Well, and like, even at that point, like, what if you like screwed up the suicide mission? That's the people that should be showing up. My thing got murked, and like, why can't Thing show up? That's who should show up. He brought all those people into the Omega 3 relay. They knew what was going to go on, but like, you can still feel that guilt. Like, I brought them there, and they died. Like, that should be who your PTSD is over.
Yeah.
Like, if you perfect the suicide mission, like yeah, it should default to something in like his past. Or if you pick all the ones where he's a goody two shoes and no one's died at that point, then don't have him have that. Like, we can have some cool branching options based on what you did. Or Caden and Ashley, like you said.
I just
You know what's interesting? Cool branching options, like things you did mattered. You mean the exact thing that didn't matter in Mass Effect 3? I saved an entire alien species,
Oh, the Rachni? Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's just numbers on a fucking screen?
plus 30. Plus
Yeah,
30.
plus 30 points. Fuck them. I'm sorry, Mass Effect 3 stands. I get it that you enjoyed the gameplay, but they ruined Mass Effect.
As a Mass Effect stan, I can still like the game and relentlessly shit on it.
It's true. No, I mean you don't need to like there's like I was talking with Jupes a little bit ago, like where I have this part of my personality where I like games to punish me, daddy. Like just like I love XCOM. Like I just sometimes I need to suffer, but not like this with Mass Effect 3. So speaking of suffering, Ironjawz, your artifact, Vaniljsas.
Okay, so a while back, someone mentioned a headbutt. So I have been looking through 40k orcs, and on the 40k orc side, I think it's the Goths have like reinforced jaws or something. That means when they charge, they do more damage or something stupid like that. And I thought, hey, that's actually a really good and very orky idea. So I went with the Iron Skull. And it's this brute likes to surprise his enemy with an headbutt to see if they're even worth fighting.
Can you say headbutt again, by the way?
Headbutt.
That's not even like you trying to sound like an orc. That's just how you talk in natively.
Yeah.
All right,
I'm
continue.
surprised there's any T's in it either.
Continue. I love your accent, Vaniljsas. I'm sorry,
So
I have the
rules,
accent. You're normal.
right,
Good.
the rules. So I tried to balance it by putting a dice roll in here. You could remove that if you wanted, if you thought that's fine. But I personally see it as being a bit busted if it doesn't have a dice roll. But anyway, here's the rules for it. At the start of combat, on a 3+, choose a unit within 1 inch and inflict a number of mortal wounds equal to their save characteristic. So the reason this would go into the theme is because like he's doing the headbutt to see if you're even worth his effort to fight. And like the big hero models have things like a 2 and a 3 up. So if he headbutts you, it's gonna be like 2 mortal wounds, who cares? But you know, if he's fighting, I don't know, some zombies, he's gonna headbutt them, he's gonna go straight through them, and he's gonna kill like 7 of them. Like he's gonna headbutt that first zombie so hard it kills 6 of his friends.
Like his head just flies off and just like like ping pongs around, killing them more. Fantastic.
That's the artifact. It's just simple like that. It's just at the start of the combat phase, he just headbutts someone. I love it.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the Mountain of Loathsome Flesh off the go, where it can just do some mortal wounds that way. Would you do it foot boss only, or could this go on the Maw Crusher as well?
I'd probably do it on foot boss only, personally.
Yeah, a lot of stuff I came up with was like, no, this needs to go on the foot boss. Maw Crusher already has everything it needs. Like anything else that you like, this is Maw Crusher only. I'd be like, why though? It's doing everything you need it to do.
The Maw Crusher, like when you look at what's in the book. In the book, we've got these command traits and artifacts that feed beautifully into the Maw Crusher. So I just want the guy on foot to see some more love.
Exactly.
So why not have him in? Because like he's going to demonstrate, and he used to lead brutes as well. Like in the old book, he used to. I think it was he gave them reroll 1s or something like that, specifically to brutes.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I didn't make an enhancing artifact for it, but I was very much thinking of the guy on foot when I did this. But yeah, I would even love an enhancing artifact if maybe it's your next one, where he buffs brutes, and then we can push that side of the army again instead of whatever else we were doing with the cabbage.
Well, I don't have one. If I was to grab one off the top of my head, what seems to be a common trend that everything has been doing is when the hero fights, he brings in a unit. I think that would fit in nicely. He fights in, his other boys get so excited they immediately pile in and fight too. can help build that smashing and bashing. I do like that artifact. I'll throw out their mine real quick. I called it Gork's Battle Brew, harkening back to Battle Brew. It doesn't do exactly Battle Brew, but it's Foot Boss. Honestly, this could be a trait or an artifact. Foot Boss only, double strength from victory. Whenever he fights and kills something, +2 wounds, +2 attacks. So he hulks out faster than everyone else. That's why you can't write the Maw Crusher. It's too big. He gets too big.
That makes sense. No, go ahead.
I'd make that an artifact because that way it will block out the destroyer artifact. So you'd use that as like a kind of internal balance where you sort of, by taking that, you block another artifact being put on him. Because otherwise, if you would stack them both and it would just be mental.
Fair. Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, I love it.
Also, the other case for artifact is like you might have people who want to model the battle brew, like a little tankard or like an Orin like gourd to like drink from the belt.
Honestly, if that was the thing, I would look to 40k, and I'd probably be looking at something like Gazgul Fracker or something, and then just make him AOS. To make like this massive orc, or I think is it Artel Miniatures or something like that? They have like this big on Raging Heroes. There's this big orc for them as well, and you just maybe you bring your Mega Boss with you. Then after he gets a couple stacks of strength from victory, you swap him out for this bigger version.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, Vaniljsas, you have another one, and then we end on Carnith.
Yeah, that was the last one.
Oh,
yeah, that was my last one too.
Oh, we did it right. Cool. See, I was worried we were being too efficient with this episode. I was watching the time a little bit there. I'm like, man, this is going to be a 1-hour rantcast, and I'm like, I can't have that. So I leaned into the Mass Effect rant, and I'm happy I did.
I mean, I think we hit a lot of areas. We hit OBR pretty well, talking about how to fix them.
Yeah, and if you want to hear me talk more about fixing OBR, look for me on Warhammer Weekly next week, where I steal Carnith's idea about the tithe.
I'll expect the call out for it. All right, I'll be watching that one live.
I think what helped to get through it was me and Carnith. Like we just liked each other's enhancement ideas because obviously we both like really play the armies a lot, so we're just wanting to add more flavor to it.
Right on. So I mean, I guess just to like sort of reset and just sort of summarize kind of what you had going on here. What you both had going on here. Vaniljsas, like just sort of like your philosophy, what you hope, like if Games Workshop starts to, I don't know, mine content with GHBs and putting new artifacts in them for the various factions or whatever. I want to get these ideas out there because I believe that you get people talking about them, and then just these ideas percolate into, into what Games Workshop must inevitably do. If like the community wants and desires stuff enough, and we start just kind of like just making games in our image, and like running tournaments where we do like whatever the fuck we want. At some point they have to conform to like us, or we don't buy their shit anymore, right? Like my idea is that like this percolates out, but what are you hoping for sort of going forward? Like different, the osmosis, cultural osmosis, right? Like that's a thing. So the cultural osmosis, what is your sort of like hope going forward? Like just the design space of artifacts, or like what do you hope to happen from here, and so on and so forth? Vaniljsas, and then Carnith, same question.
Well, it's actually one of the reasons why I play Ironjawz, is the army does what I wish other armies did. If I want to play it a certain way, I basically can. So Carnith mentioned he likes oops all brutes. Well, I'm pretty similar, apart from I'm there like, oh look, it's all pigs. There's a cabbage, there's like 2 war chanters, and the rest is pigs. And it's just, it's just running at you. It's that epic cavalry charge.
Yeah.
And I love that sort of thing where the player can show off their personality when it comes to the army. I don't like it when you're forced down one particular route, which is why for Kruleboyz with my enhancements, I was trying to enhance things like Gut Rippers. And it's also why I loved it when Carnith had one that added Hobgrot's Battle Line. Because the more flexibility and the more we make it that you can sort of lean on the gas for different aspects of an army means that you're going to have somebody come along who goes, hey, I really love that one model in this army. I wish I could use it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we mentioned with the Gorgon, if it was a good unit, then the people who really love the model would turn up with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want. I want all the models to be viable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They don't all need to be the best model, but just
No.
give me an excuse, right? Like just give me an excuse to play this thing that I love, right? That's where I think artifacts and enhancements fit really well. Is like they're basically excuses to play something if done right. Carnith, your sort of like cultural osmosis take on what we hope for, or what you hope for.
I think Vaniljsas said it perfectly. Ironjawz is kind of that ideal of what I want out of an army. Like, yeah, I can play Oops All Brutes, he can play Oops All Pigs. We still all do the same thing, but we reach that goal in our own way, right? And that is always like that is the Johnny expression. I want to be able to do this in my own way, and we can get there. And not a lot of armies have that ability where you are so forced into one way that you must play this way, and if you deviate from this, maybe eke out a couple victories where you feel good, but you're going through a lot of bad times because, like, man, this model, if it just had one little extra boost, it could get there.
It wouldn't have to be so hard on on all those other times when you're losing that you're just like at the back
right.
foot or whatever. Yeah.
Right, and so for me, that's why it makes me sad when I see a lot of armies that like had that way, and they get instantly demolished. Like that's what frustrates me with IDK. Not an army for me, but man, does it suck that you don't see Namarti. Apparently, I forgot where I read it. Apparently, Namarti do, or at least Reavers do great in some places in the UK and Australia, but like I don't ever hear about them in the States. I look at Slanesh. The demons are just non-existent. If someone goes, "What do you play in Slanesh?" I go, "Don't touch." Well, you got to bring demons, but you summon them and you don't bring them in your list. Like you just don't. They don't do anything. They're not going to do it. Just don't. Like you started at a bad spot. And there's plenty of armies that you start thinking like, that model looks really cool. And then the person goes, "Hate to break it to you, buy it, paint it because you love it. It's going to sit on your shelf."
Yeah.
Why? Well, I can't say, like, especially for a new player. I want to buy, I don't know, maybe you really like Minotaurs. At least where Minotaurs used to be. They gotten better, but sure, you tack on 17 additional buffs, they're going to get there. Mm-hmm. But, like, they used to be, like, one of the worst units in the game. They look cool, I want to buy them. Yeah, but they die to everything and they don't do damage. So you're going to be spending more time putting them back in your box than they're sitting on the field.
Well, there's entire armies that are like that right now, right? Like, there's, like, not necessarily. Beast of Chaos is weird. It's the race to the bottom for Beast of Chaos is like making it to where it can do some like aggressive things on the table.
Also, I just want to say rip to Beast of Chaos because they are the next Tome Celestial.
Yep. Or whatever.
Like you hate to see it. Needed a tome, got a Tome Celestial.
And you know what it is like I'm paying the karmic price right now because Soulblight Gravelords was a great book. Like it's got a little bit of the IJ factor going on. It has a couple units that are exceptions or a couple models that are exceptions to the rule, but widely, like you can I can pretty much play with whatever's in this book, and I can find a way to make it work. And there's a place for skeletons and graveguard and wolves and zombies. Like there's a place like for all of our base range models, like Fellbats. I can even find a place for those. Like luckily they're not like a weird dominant cheeky like stupid. Stormcast Eternals thing with like their stupid birds. Like they didn't make them like some horrible NPE way to play the army. They're just like they're just like a cheap thing that you can use to like mess with some deployments and stuff. And like that's exactly where those should be, So they've got that going on, but there's a couple of models where you're like I don't really know where this fits in when I can do this. But for the most part, it's like I can find a way to play this army. However, that's a good place to be in for an army. Like I struggle to think about like IDK, like Reavers. You can do a Reavers and Turtle army, which is what you're talking about, like the Euro scene. What they're kind of doing with them. That it's like Reavers and Turtles and like a small like a complement of eels for like some pinning and winning, or basically, while the Reavers do their work.
The key to me is I want in particular GW when they design to think about the approach of lifting things up rather than pushing them down. I don't like it. It feels bad when, for example, that Slaanesh player who was playing that book of Slaanesh where it was too powerful compared to everyone else. The easy option is to smash the Slaanesh army in the face with a nerf bat as hard as you can. But it feels bad for that player. Everybody else briefly feels good, but then they feel a little bad that that player doesn't get to play what's fun anymore, and it becomes a non-factor for them. But the hard way and the better way, in my mind, is to just lift other people up. A good example for me is Fire Slayers. As you can see behind me, they're just sat on my shelf. I loved playing 5 Magmadroths because the sub-faction Lofnir opened up the design space to allow me to bring 5 Behemoths if they were all Magmadroths. And I loved that there was a way of playing it where it was still viable. You know, I took it to 4-1, only beaten by Slaanesh. And I made it, and my list had 0 Halfguard Berserkers in. But particularly like more recently with the change to AOS 3 and that, what we've seen, at least when it comes to Fire Slayers, is the small hero spam version of the army has become less and less relevant with the shooting meta. And then the Magmadroth side of it is just non-existent anymore because of the change to priests and the change to armor stacking and stuff like that. So much so that you are basically the only thing viable in the army is Halfguard Berserker spam. So essentially, to balance Halfguard Berserkers, they nerfed everything into oblivion except for Halfguard Berserkers until it brought Halfguard Berserkers into line, which for me is the wrong way to approach it. It's I believe a similar thing happened with KO in their first book. Is that they were trying to deal with Clown Car, specifically Zilfin, and so the whole army just kept getting nerf after nerf after nerf to deal with Zilfin rather than just dealing with the root cause of the problem.
I think this is going to happen with LRL. This is my great fear for LRL, is like if you like to bring Sentinels in line, the thought that like they keep going in like some weird directions to bring them in line where it's like they have a core mechanical thing you need to address, has nothing to do with points, and then you need to actually like bring other stuff up, you know, like right now it feels like the LRL players feel like they don't have a chance unless they play with Sentinels because the rest of the army just isn't to snuff. I know that they're like they feel overwhelming from a rules standpoint and that their AOS reminder sheet is like 16 pages long, but like that's not Jupe's hot take. I kind of like LRL. Even went so far as to bought the release box. I own their collector's edition codex. Sorry, Battle Tome. Just because I like the art, and I bought the release box for my buddy's birthday, and he already had a release box, so he let me keep the Battle Tome and the dice. So, and he just got a bunch of sweet models. I like LRL. I'll go to bat for them. I hate when they nerf armies. Like this is why like when Slaanesh okay, Slaanesh went out of bounds. Okay, maybe fine, right? But they always have this problem of like bringing things down rather than like addressing whatever the core mechanical issue is until it's like unplayable. Like the overcorrective steering that I see is the thing that like bugs me because people are invested in their armies. And by the way, the egregious Slaanesh players out there. I didn't play against a Slaanesh player who didn't like Slaanesh, like, as an army. Like, a lot of the Slaanesh players I played against were just waiting for that army to be great again. And, like, why did you see Slaanesh immediately on the tournament scene? Because everyone already fucking had it, right? Like if Beast of Chaos gets, like, a Battle Tome tomorrow, and it's great, you're going to see it in tournaments performing immediately the day after tomorrow. Because everyone already has it and loves it. They're going to have to buy, like, a couple of new models, and, like, maybe they went, like, maybe they would like Bray heavy, and like it turns out the Minotaurs are like the best thing, so they're gonna need to buy some Minotaurs. You know what I'm saying? Like, but they have the rest of the bones of the army. This pendulum that swings through people's armies, where like your best thing might be the models you don't own right now, but the startup's a lot easier for getting 500 points of buff pieces and or battle line than buying 2,000 points of whatever. Like, you see these armies emerge kind of immediately because like there's people who are passionate about their army right now. They're waiting for an excuse, and it turns out that it's awesome. Like, oh yes, and they feel great for those like first 2 months, and then like their friends aren't having any fun because like their friends playing an ignored army like Khorne. And like you don't want to be that person who's just like shitting on your friend who's as passionate about Khorne as you are about Slaanesh or KO or whatever your army is, right? Like we all have our army that we love the most. Like you guys, I mean, I think it was a really good theme of tonight that like that IJ has just a consistent fallback army, or broadly Orcs as like just that consistent fallback army, because Games Workshop understands that that the demographic breakdown, they always need Orcs to be relevant in some way. They're like orcs, elves, and I would posit dragons, even though there's been a disturbing lack of dragons. Like it's like orcs, elves, and dragons are kind of like the fucking why you sign up to fantasy, right? Like when you're a fucking fantasy nerd to begin with, wizards, right? Wizards, orcs, elves, dragons. Like those. That's what we're fucking signing up for. So like you kind of got to keep that shit relevant. It's what they do with other stuff in the meantime that just like I don't know. It talking about like the bringing people up. It's for me, I think that's the exact artifact problem. People are upset about how, you know, good like 10 artifacts were of the 100 artifacts from the malign sorcery days or whatever. And what they were really upset about was that they didn't have like awesome shit in their own book to look at. You know, but they displaced that malaise onto like, well, look at these good things. Well, if you had good things and these things are good, then like you're not going to give a fuck. You know, if you had something that enticed you away from an Aether Quartz brooch to begin with. Well, Aether Quartz brooch is a terrible example. That artifact was kind of absurd. But like there's a sort of judgment. Thermal Rider Cloak. Like if you had artifacts in your own book that said, what if because your book is specific, you get a turbo Thermal Rider Cloak. Like there's other people can take the generic version of it, which just gives you flying. Your codex is the one that gets Thermal Rider Cloak plus the 3-inch movement. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if the generic ones were like the cool thing, but your specific thing is just a little bit better, or a little bit more interesting, or a little bit more specific to what you have going on within your battle tome. Enhances an allegiance ability, or, you know, like, that's the thing. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be mechanically powerful. It just needs to make me want to like unleash that flavor of the army, you know?
Yeah, because like looking at the artifacts, you're like, all right, this is cool, but it does not fit the theme. Or, you know, like it was the problem with Alien Destiny. It was too good. Everyone looked at it and go, oh, just yeah, I'm gonna put this on the thing that needs to be the most durable. And yep, I've checked off. There's my amulet. Everything else in my book sucks. So there's the Arcane Tome. Like, just make book artifacts better. Make them worthwhile. Hell, if half of these that we came up with tonight made in the book, I wouldn't look at those other stuff and be like, nah, dude, I want to go give my Orruk the axe that grows bigger. Because that's cool. I want that. Like, give me that. Destroyer, like, I think it was when Halo went over it, he said, like, Destroyer was, like, the gold standard. Like, yep, it's good. I would take this over Amulet. It's fun. Like, yeah, they all should be to that standard. Stop writing fucking Flask.
So the thing about Amulet Destiny, and I spoke to Meph about this probably like I think a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago, when I was first picking up Giants. We got Amulet Destiny, and I felt sad because I really wanted to play Gatebreakers and just punch people in the face. Because Vince would always talk about how Giants was all about retreating and just holding the objective and just standing there and being lame. But me coming from the Ironjawz background, I was there like, Gatebreakers are really good at punching people in the face. I want to punch people in the face harder. So I would take the I was looking at the +2 attacks command trait instead of anything else, and then I just got sad when I was stuck with one artifact. 'Cause I'd be there like, well, if I want to even be relevant in an event, I need Amulet of Destiny, but my heart is telling me to take something like Vial of Manticore Venom, which just makes me better at punching people in the face. So I'm not sad Amulet of Destiny got nerfed. I'm sad how they nerfed it, but I'm not sad it's become less mandatory, especially for something like Giants. Just because it's for me, it's let me go. Well, actually, I can just take more damage stuff now, without feeling like I've put myself in a ditch.
Mm-hmm. I think that happens with players in AOS. Like the feeling that you put yourself in a ditch. I think that happens to us because like the inclination is to like want to play like just like the bonkers ridiculous things that you love, and then you find out that they're like not as good as some other stuff, and you're like, but I don't want I want to play the game of Age of Sigmar, and then like you get to the table and you're like, I don't know, like a little bit of like an arms race feel to it, you know, where you got to feel like you're locked in. This is the reason why it's always like, or this goes back to like the bringing people up. Just give me an excuse. Let me like feel relevant with my like wacky like pet units and stuff like that. It doesn't need to be the best, but just let me feel like I'm in it. Let me feel like I'm not completely throwing myself in the ditch. Like I understand that I'm not bringing like the hotness, but I'm at least not like burying myself at deployment by what I chose because I liked the models. You know, Games Workshop says over and over again, and I believe them, that they're a models company. So like, let me play all your models, dude. Like, pretty simple.
GW, please rewrite Slangors. We just need to put that one out there.
No, you did. Oh, but that hits like both the Beasts of Chaos. Go ahead.
I know. Slangors need a rewrite. There's actually been on TGA. They've put out two. This woman collected all this data, did 2 surveys, and it was like, "What's the number one thing you want?" And like the number one comments is just rewrite Slangors, please. They look cool. We want to play them. They are utter ass.
They don't even need to rewrite it. They just need to take the Shadespire models rules, and that's what the 3 Slangors have for rules.
See, I know people who own them who are ready for this. Just like Math was saying just before, you're gonna drop like the book that changes this, and it's not gonna be, hey, we've got to wait 3 weeks for these people to go out, buy the model, and paint them. The people who like that model already have it. It's already built. It's already painted. It's waiting for the opportunity to hit the table.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was at Adepticon when they announced the new Keeper of Secrets. Like it was the night before, because I was in the team tournament. It went out Thursday. The team tournament was a Friday. I had a Exalted Keeper of Secrets. My friend was playing Beast of Chaos. I was playing pre-book Slaanesh.
Beautiful. You and your friend are paragons of the community. And I love you both.
I will post the picture of our board in chat of just how many models showed up on a 2x2 board. And like we got creative. That board was full. And I was like, oh my god, the new Keeper of Secrets. And like a lot of people are like, oh, it's kind of ugly. I'm like, you don't understand though. That's Slaanesh beauty right there. Like that thing, I saw it and I was like,
S tier model.
Yeah. Oh, I own 2. I eventually need to get a Shalaxi, but she's also up there. Needs some fixing. 1 attack weapons. Can't happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Actually, speaking of 1 attack weapons, it's one of the big shames of this crocodile dude. Is they finally gave us, instead of D6 damage, they gave us D3 plus 3, where I don't feel terrible rolling a 1.
It's a 2. However, you always roll a 2.
However, It's a single attack, so it never even hits in the first.
The key, you play Big Wa, and the turn you Big Wa, it's 2.
Oh,
That yeah. I did a Big Wa army. It was a
Nagash
bunch of
Stink Eye is 1 attack, 1d6 damage. It always misses. You don't even get to roll the d6.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Big Wa. I did 20 brutes, a war chant, a mega boss, a maw crusher. Took the sludge raker, took a shaman, and took 6 bolt boys because of course. And yeah, it felt good. And I was like, man, I'm gonna Big Wa, and I'm gonna 2 bites. And actually, the bite was what killed Orgot's Demon Spew. I rolled that 6. He had taken damage, but I was like, take 6 mortal wounds. This bite did something. Normally, Sludge Raker kills so much stuff ahead of time. I never get to do the bite, or the bite misses. Or they save the bite. And I was like, no, this bite, like it's going to do 7 mortal wounds, and people are going to shit themselves. They're like, how much mortal wounds? Yeah, 7. Like, it's an awkward number, but like, it's 1 attack. No one's expecting that.
I do love the Sludge Raker in general, though, I will say. He very much hits the notes, specifically when we're using it as a combat monster rather than using it as a buff piece for
Like a buff wagon.
Crossbows. Like, no. As a monster, it's hilarious because one turn you hit someone and it does like 23 damage or something obscene. And then the next turn, you take a swing and it's like, I did 5 damage. I missed, and I had no rend.
Yeah, I brought my Sludge Raker out. Built him a Slemdrack. I'll get him one closer. He's been super fun.
It's fantastic.
I have a second one to build as Slumdrack.
Ooh, I don't know if I could do 2. I don't know where the points are in that army for 2.
So what we do is we take all the crossbows out. We acknowledge that we've lost the game, and we put a second crocodile in. We go eat crocodiles and just throw them at your opponent.
I might have to start asking my friends, can I run the house version of Kruleboyz and throw all of our stuff in? Like, let me play Gut Rippers. They're fun. They'll be fun.
I have 60 painted Gut Rippers there, and I've got 10 more in a box next to me.
I only have 20. I will get more, but I do have 12 Bolt Boys because they're. I don't want to run. I don't want to be the guy that runs 18 of them. I'll run 12.
Oh, like a true gentleman, like a Tyler Emerson. You're not going to run 15 snakes. You're going to run
exactly
10. You're keeping it reasonable here.
I still run like 10 to 20 Gut Rippers in my army. Like, I was like, yeah, if I'm going to play this like the smart way, I take out all of them and just replace with Hobgrots. Yeah. But like, I don't want to play Hobgrots. Honestly, they are ugly models. I hate the way they painted them. Like, I do not like them. They do not belong in my Orc army. But
you find a lot of pure like old school Orc players hate goblins.
Yeah,
they're little orcs. They're not proper orcs. They don't count.
Yeah, like I actually had to paint them green. Like yellow just makes them look like they're just sickly. I was like, all right, if I at least paint them green, they can fit in, and I'll enjoy them more. And just cover them in null oil so they just look dirty. So like I'll go that way. But like I just treat them as grots. Like if you go like, no, they're Hoggrots, like not in this army, they're not. Thematically, they are grots that have just ate too much Gloomspite mushrooms and just grew too tall.
That's kind of awesome. Vanilla, you hanging on to a thought there? I didn't want to cut you off.
No.
All right, we're good. All right, so final soapbox, gentlemen. The anything we touched on, you get to go in depth on anything that's been like off in the peripheral of what you've been thinking about. Anything you just want to say or platform tonight? I'll start with you, Vanilla. What was that?
Give Gobsprak +1 to cast.
Give Gobsprak +1 to cast. Fair enough.
I'm not asking for much, guys. Just give him something. He's a named wizard. Like, it costs almost 300 points. Why is he naked casting?
I'll go one further. I want to see a rules change on Gordrak that will both hurt and harm him, or will buff him and harm him at the same time. I want his axes to change to the damage characteristic and not just 2 mortal wounds. When I war chant to buff him, I want him to go to 3 mortal wounds when he strikes. And likewise, when I run against Seraphon Coalesce and they do -1, make it go to 1 mortal wound. But let him match his damage characteristic. Like, he's already bad enough as he is because he's a named character. He already costs more than everything else. Let him do that more mortal wound damage. Like, what's the deal?
See,
It's not gonna harm anything.
I thought they figured out what to do with named characters like kind of half an edition ago. Like Gotrek kind of initially as Gotrek appeared, I'm like, yo, like nice. And even with like where Nagash and Archeon kind of headed, I'm like, hey, they figured out how to do named characters. You have to make them kind of OP, like for their points a little bit. Yeah, sure, give them like a little bit of like an extra cost just because they're named. Like sure, like they're 100 point premium for a named thing. Fine. Like we just agree. 100 point premium for a name thing. You always cost 100 points more than like whatever your generic version is, but you get to be like a little weird and OP because the ability to modulate it with like extra equipment and extra stuff will always make up for that gap. Like it always felt right. And now it's like no, just kind of universally the named versions of everything is worse. So it's like we're in a bizarro land where named version of everything should just be 100 points cheaper version of the generic thing. But that feels the opposite of what should be true. They just did that with Xantos. Xantos is cheaper than the generic Liege Cavalos.
All right, because the attacks on those points that you would buff him with a command trait and an artifact or something.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, but that's backwards. It's backwards because you're the named version of it, so you're supposed to be the better version of the thing. But, sorry, go on.
They have that in 40k. The named characters like Gazgul Fracker and all that. Like if they're a warlord, then they get a warlord bonus. Which is like a general. If they're a general, they get what will be their equivalent of a command trait. So like they've got it baked into them on top of the cool stuff. So like somebody at GW does know how to make characters and monsters. It's just unfortunately they're off in the 40k team.
Yeah, and like because I play Demons of Selection 40k. Yeah, it's like, oh, I want to run like with the demons, you run a majority named characters. Like there's just a lot of named characters in there.
That's cool.
Like,
that's cool.
But if I took one of them, it's not like, oh man, I screwed myself out of command trait. It's, oh no, this guy just gets picked this one, and I look and I go, that's decent. I'll take it, and I run with it.
Yeah, like Ahriman's a good example. He's for people who don't know, he's one of the poster boy sorcerers for one of the like Chaos Sorcerer and Space Marine factions. And what does his warlord trait do? It makes him better at being a sorcerer and living, and like, and the big demon sorcerer for that faction, Magnus. What does that do? It makes him better at being a sorcerer. Hey, Gordrak's like the head of our Ironjawz faction. Maybe he should get a command trait that makes him better at punching people in the face.
Yeah, perfect.
No, sorry. You actually got to put him in an RPG adventure where he decides to not do any side quests and then get his entire storyline taken over by somebody else.
Yeah, and then he just hands over his character sheet to Kragnos, who apparently is the new god of destruction.
I want to vomit blood at the thought of that.
Like every okay, so
no, keep going. I'm gonna pull you up on the phone. No, you guys got this.
Every single Ironjawz player.
How it's happening for Kragnos.
No, let's
every
go.
Single Ironjawz player went, yes, something cool is going to happen with destruction. We're not NPCs. We're not NPCs. I swear to God, we're not NPCs, guys. We are story relevant. Something cool is going to happen. And then Kragnos happened. And then
we finally get to see, like, we were there, like, at the gates. We're finally going to see Gordrak become what we've always imagined him to be. What's that? A new model's coming out? Wait, what? Why is it a centaur? Wait,
Wait,
That could be
why is there a giant
Mass
centaur?
destruction. Oh no, it's a destruction god. What? What happened to Gorka Bork?
Oh, but don't worry, he's not really a god. He's a demigod, and he was actually really bad at destroying all the dragons, and he got a mountain put on top of him. You're just like, oh, so this guy is a failure. Great.
He was so good at killing dragons that a tiny little frog hid him in a mountain.
Or like the first story for what was that? Broken Realms was like, it was actually a cool interaction. Like, oh yeah, here's this orc who's an Ironjawz. He's a brute, and he like the continuum between between Ironjawz and Bonesplitterz was actually like you give up on life, and you're like, fuck it, death ride, and you're like, oh okay, so this is like how like Bonesplitterz is the end game for orcs. Like these are the orcs who like they basically became orc slayers. That's cool. All right, hey, cool. They gave some life to Bonesplitterz. I wonder what they're going to do with this. Man, he's hearing the drums of Gorka Morka. Dude, something cool is going to happen. And it's like, actually, no, that was just Kragnos knocking at the door.
You know what would have been great if we'd had like a 10-foot tall, ripped, and you can even make him Bonesplitterz only. I don't care. Naked Gork appear. Like Gork basically appears. He's with Bonesplitterz because they're all channeling the spirit of the war to even have him present.
Yeah, it's like super primal, right? Like,
and like the Ironjawz are just there in awe. Like they want to show off to him, but it's the Bonesplitterz who summoned him.
Yeah,
that would be amazing. But instead, we got what's his name? Is it Garros Fellhoof from Warhammer Fantasy, but made like 6 times bigger?
Was that the name Centaur?
Yeah, yeah, it was.
It's a shame.
It looks suspiciously like Kragnos.
See, like, they could easily make, like, Gordrak a 660 point, 700, 800 point model. He's supposed to be the one that leads the entire Great Wall of all of the things, and he's made from, like, the knuckle bone of, like, Gorka Morka from punching all the god beasts or whatever. That's the total orky backstory for your orc god thing, right? Like, it's perfect. Like, it would align him with being a Marathi type character.
Yeah, like
right?
Like if we're gonna say the Maw Crusher is punchy, Gordrak should be like the punchiest.
Yes.
Like all right, if I'm taking this guy, I'm going all in. That dude's getting stuck in and murdering everything. But the problem is he only has a 4-up save. He ain't survive it. He doesn't have a ward save. He definitely ain't survive it. He doesn't even take buffs super well because, like, well, if you take him, you're probably not taking a second Maw Crusher, so now you're leaving the mount trade on the table.
Yeah.
And his axes weren't interacting with the War Chanters either, which is absurd.
That's why I said that those mortal wounds should scale up with his damage. Get him to damage 3 or damage 4 somehow, make him do 4 mortal wounds. Who cares? It's right. Gordrak.
Yeah, Gordrak. I would like to see them. It's a very similar consonance to it, but like Gotrek, I would like to see them take what they kind of did with Gotrek and just like apply that template to Godrak.
Take Godtrek's defensive tech and give me that as offensive tech for Gordrak.
Yes. Like, why isn't he piling in twice if he kills a thing, like getting a free smashing and bashing, right? Like,
dude, that'd be great if he could smash him. If he triggers smashing and bashing, he can choose himself to pile in again.
Yes. Right. Like he gets like because why I don't know like I don't want to harsh on Gotrek because I like where they went with him. He just doesn't cost the right amount. That's basic. But like Gotrek, why isn't he that punchy? And by the way, like I would love for him to have a native like Midnight Cloak or Cloak of Midnight. You can't shoot him unless you're within 12 inches. Like unless you're in the danger zone to fuck with that smashy bashy bastard. You know, like you can stay on the 4-up save. Sure. And, like, he should have a 6-up save. there should be a god package. Like
You
all
could,
the faction gods have a 6-up invulnerable save, or a 6-up after save, and can't be hand dusted or slain outright. Okay, every god model that we've determined is like a leader of a faction or is a god type, Godric, Alariel, like any one of them, they all can't be slain outright. Have a 6-up ward save. Okay, that is the god package, and they all count as a general for purposes of double jennies. That is the god package. You get that all. You are a god thing. Like, give it. Every one of them has it, and then from there you figure out what makes them the most version of their army that can possibly be. Right. So I cut you off a few times there, Vaniljsas.
Yeah, I want to see a strength from victory activate twice every time I kill a unit. I want to see War Chanter buff on him do double the effect. Like, just make him. You don't even have to improve his War Scroll much. Just make him take double the buffs that a normal Mega Boss does. He's supposed to be better than every other Mega Boss. So, like,
Big Teeth is the best Maw Crusher.
Yeah. So like when a War Chanter pumps him up, he gets really pumped up. Rather than +1 damage, he gets +2 damage.
Yeah.
And that by doing it that way, for example, you would have an inbuilt oh god switch where the shooting army, which can't deal with it, just shoots the blooming War Chanter off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly it's gone. Mm-hmm. You've tuned him down.
The counterplay is already in there, right? Like the counterplay is inherent. And if you got hit by all that, you kind of had it coming, right? Like, if you didn't chaff him or you didn't deal with the buff pieces, you had it coming. And if you cost him correctly, like, we make him OP. This now went from enhancing the artifacts, by the way, to enhancing Godrak, because we should. Like, if you make him cost, another 100, 200 points, but you give him all of that extra shit to make him feel like the orkiest, badassiest orc on a Maw Crusher that could exist, it feels right. This is, like, I don't like the line of thought where, like, there's a couple of problematic named characters in the game, Marathi. Like, and depending on the version, like, in Nagash for a spell there at the beginning of 2.0, because there just wasn't enough stuff to deal with Nagash in the beginning part of 2.0. As it went on, like, it was fine. But, like, we have these things where we just, like, seem to, like, hyperfixate on it and, like, not see the problem for the full breadth of what it is, which is, like, named characters tend to suck. It's just every now and then one's good. And so, like, we need to have some sort of package of making named stuff sweet. And I think uniqueness and focusing in on what the identity of the army is or what the identity of the faction is how you really key in on the right stuff and amp it up. Like, you can even take away, like, make their command abilities worse than the generic thing's command ability. Like, I've seen some design space go that direction for a little while, and I'm like, I'm actually kind of becoming okay with that, provided the model itself slaps shit as hard as it should. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is as sweet as it is. Because it's a god showing up to the... Like, I like the, like, Hercules, Xena Warrior Princess vibe of this game, where, like, it is actual gods, like, fucking around with each other, and, like, there's this, like, they're actively trying to, like, ruin or control the world, Like, on a long enough timeline, like, yeah, you're gonna see your god, like, fucking with your random-ass village somewhere over there in the distance, because it's... that they're all vying for power actively. They're warring over these 8 points. Like, all this stuff is actively going on in the world right now. That's cool. Make it feel that cool. And then also, like, have the snowflake power for, like, my random army that I make that doesn't use the god stuff because, like, I'm clever and I, retool and I find the right combo stacking. But on the tin, in the package, the unique named thing should be just excellent. Sorry.
No, very well said.
You're right on.
And then Warlord Joel calling me out here. Meph been using a lot of 40k terms this stream. What's going on? So what you don't know is that, like, I started with Warhammer Fantasy Battle, but the bulk of my competitive play for a while there was 40k, and so a lot of 40k terms got in my brain pan, and they're like the reason I pronounce Nagash as Nagash sometimes is because in a vacuum, learning how to read his name, I pronounced it as Nagash. And then like that pronunciation got in my brain. So even as other people taught me the correct way was Nagash, I still accidentally sometimes default back to the way I learned it. You know, army books weren't called battle tomes as the nomenclature didn't exist. You had an army book, but then they gave a clever name to 40k stuff, codex. So we started calling our fantasy stuff codexes, and still we got them to become known as battle tomes. And so I have to unlearn. I had to unlearn that codex wasn't the name for the thing. I'm not going into it. Fuck you, buddy. I don't like 40k. So yeah, we were on the final soapbox. We got talking about Godrak. I think it's a damn shame he's not better. I just think it's a damn shame. It's like when I look at Alariel and I'm like, if she's got a little bit more juice now. It's a damn shame every time the named character isn't as sweet as it should be, and it feels, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right.
It feels like when I went back and said, like, oh, I like that model. The model looks sweet as hell. And you're like, oh, like, you're just like, oh, how do you break it to them that model's going to spend the majority of the time on its shelf? And no one likes putting their models on their shelf. Like, when Slaanesh got really good, and I was like, oh man, it's a Feel Bad's army because now I crush everyone. To the shelf it goes, because now it's actually too good. And we have armies that are just way too bad. And
Gordrak's been bad for so long that he's not just not on my shelf. I took him apart.
Oof. I built my initial Maw Crusher as Godrak because like I built him all as the name character, and no one knows what the name characters look like anyways.
Yep.
So like, just run him as the generic version. You're
Yep.
not going to notice.
Yep.
You tell me this isn't the god character. You don't know.
Yeah, Laukovai, or Vangorian Lord. You build the Laukovai and just run it as the Vangorian Lord. It's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
that's what I do if I got into it.
Yep, Godrak. You build Godrak and run it as Maw Crusher. Like that's how you do. It's a shame that it's that way though, right? Like it just feels cheap. Like I don't know. Vordry is weird because the difference between Vordry and a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon is one's bald and one has a helmet. That's it.
Oh, I'd never know the difference.
Yeah, no one would.
Now, if you ran two of them next to each other and they both look the same, like that was Vordry, I'd be like, is it? What's the difference?
Yeah.
I was playing on one of the locals' YouTube channels, Saga of Dice, and I'm not sure if it's caught on camera, but I was picking out which one to fight whilst he was playing Soulblight, and he had Vordry and he had a Vampire Lord, and I was there like, oh, I'm going to fight Vordry, and I pointed at the model, and he goes, that's the Vampire Lord. I'm like, oh. I just picked the one that I thought was the cooler looking model and assumed that was the named character,
It's usually how it is, though. The cooler model is the named variant. It's only a rare. Now, granted, Vordry literally came about when they did Legions of Nagash. Is that when the Vordry was actually created? Because he wasn't there beforehand. They made a character whole cloth out of him.
Yeah, no, I mean I think you're right. Like I'm trying to cast my because it was like 2 months, 3 months. It was like 4. It was like a season. I'm trying to think between when I got into Warhammer. Like Legion of Nagash didn't exist. It was I was Grand Alliance Death, right? This is like how I got onto it. And I ran a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, and Nagash was like kind of like my first list because I'm like I could do both. And if I buy a unit of ghouls, because they were like dirt cheap and like skeletons, and I could like do it, and so I'm like, yeah, of course I'm gonna run like the big sweet crap. And then Vordry came out in LON, and I'm like, I'm gonna run Vordry and a Vlazda, and that's when like my double dragon jokes all started happening. I think you're right because he seemed cool, and his whole thing is like he gets chained to a castle as a curse, and this fucking metal. But like he was woefully underrepresented and doesn't really exist. Castellite Dynasty feels like they're trying to like really amp up Vordry as a real thing that is really real in the universe, though. And so, like, let's go.
They need more of that. They need more. They need a lot more like Path to Glory, like narrative stuff. Like,
Vordry was definitely not a fantasy dude. There might have been some like corner case stories that mentioned him in Age of Sigmar, but he was not a fantasy dude to my knowledge. Vordry is not a fantasy dude. I mean, you got your von Karsteins, you got Aberash. I think Vordry was supposed to kind of take Aberash's place in AOS.
because he's still around, right? He's the progenitor of Flesh Eater Courts, right?
That's what's his name? Ulsharan.
Usharan, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but he's also still around. He was one of the like few guys actually brought forward, right?
Well, that's one of the like we've got 9. Nagash has 9 Mortarks. I'm just waiting for them to announce like Ulsharan as like one of the Mortarks, like Mortark of the Feast, right? And now you have your Flesh Eater Courts like Mortark. Like, why doesn't that model exist? Like, they done fucked up with some of the death rollouts. Like you talk about how like destruction are NPCs. Like we did have the big boss NPC for a little bit there with the Soul Wars of Nagash, and they were hinging a lot of the plot. But in the grand totality of how long Warhammer has been around with its fantasy IPs, Nagash took a backseat for a while, showed up for the end times, and then Soul Wars they wrote him in as like kind of the bad guy, but because they had this like big bad evil guy singular character, everything else was a jobber around him to build up to the big bad evil guy character. And we're still sitting here with only 4 armies. Like it's the thinnest Grand Alliance. I bet
we're down to 4 armies now, aren't we? Because they keep merging all our books.
Well, you have a soup, but like Bonesplitterz. I mean, you keep getting souped. Like,
yeah.
Like you have 4 books, but you have more than 4 armies. I guess is,
Yeah,
and how do we split hairs? How do we split hairs? Do we split hairs over books or armies?
I was just trolling you.
No. I'm asking sincerely. Like, do we split hairs over books or factions or armies? Like,
I would do it by unique aesthetic personally.
Unique aesthetic. Interesting.
Yeah. So like I'd give orcs 3. You could argue 4 with Big Wa. Giants are its own. Ogres are 2. Gloomspite gets is everything in the kitchen sink.
I mean, that's the most soup it gets, right? GSG is the most soup.
Well, and it's so
soup.
Yeah, it's so disparate from each other too.
Split up. That's actually for me the biggest reason I was upset at Kragnos when he came out. It's that Destruction has so many amazing aesthetics, like loads of different themes. You've got Ironjawz, you've got Naked Savage Orcs, you've got the new Kruleboyz, you've got Gits with their trogs, the spiders, all that sort of thing. And then we just had a guy turn up who had none of this. And it's just a singular model. Like, for me, his biggest crime is that he's a singular model. If you said to me, hey, here's Kragnos, he's a new god for destruction, and by the way, here's his entire badass centaur army that's going to charge you down, I'd have gone, yeah, I'm in. But, with him not matching the aesthetic of any of my armies, I'm just not interested.
Yeah, the shield looks a little bit like Kruleboyz, doesn't it? Like the shield's got some iconography with Kruleboyz.
No, it honestly reminded me of like a dwarf shield.
Yeah, in the lore, they were saying that the Kruleboyz stuff is modeled on what they think Kragnos looks like, having never seen him. It's like, okay, they just. In fact, when you see the actual model, you're there like, well, actually, the shields match the faces of the Orruk that's holding it, as if there's a scarier face of them.
That seems like so they're trying to like write themselves into an explanation, right? Like
they put it in after the fact,
right? Yeah. And to kind of build on his point, like here's one of my gut replicas. If I hold him just one way, you can't see him anymore. Why? He's hiding behind the shield. Like he's putting his shield face in front of himself because you're not supposed to see him. You're supposed to see the shield and go, fuck, that's scary.
What great design, by the way. Like, really good, like, use of the space, right? I mean,
yeah.
Good model.
Some of these Gut Rippers models, the poses that you get with them are just beautiful.
I dislike the one guy who decides that he needs to shove a spear all the way outside and actually be like,
Yeah, the one where the spear is lower than the base.
yeah, like, don't like that one, but the rest of them are good.
Putting him slightly on a rock, so he stood like off angle like this, and the spear still touches the mat of the table past his base. Like, there's just no saving it. Like that pose is a bit daft, but like that one in particular, like you just picked up, I love that one. Like, because he's like lifting up the shield, you're distracted by the scary face, and if you look, the spear's just below it, like he's gonna jab you with it while you're distracted.
Well, good motion to it. I love what's going on in Chat Gang here right now. Kragnos shield is a little Zinchi to me. Hang on, I'll come back to that. And hey, I've got that gut ripper right next to me, so based.
It's a good gut ripper.
Yeah. So Kragnos shield a little Zinchi to me. They've got themselves an out then, if that is true, because they can be like, this is a Zinch ploy just as planned, and remove him from destruction.
And then he can go straight into chaos where he's supposed to be.
Right.
But
With Beast of Chaos.
My Beast of Chaos friend goes, man, I hate that you got a new Centigore. And you didn't even want it. It's like, he doesn't fit in any of my armies.
Centigores, I remember like when the Beast of Chaos groups, like we were looking at like how cheap and how fast we could make Centigores go, and basically the whole point was to basically pin an army and outside of Foria with like just these blazing fast 100-inch moving Centigores, where we just take like 10 of them and just go like this, and then like just outside of we're gonna go first because we're a 1-drop army because we're Beasts of Chaos. We have a million awesome battalions. We're gonna be 1-drop. We're gonna outdrop you. And the whole point was to go Hua! And just throw out these idiot Centigores, and they're just outside of for you, so you're pinned and deployed, and just do some bonkers stupid crap.
It was actually, so at that same Adepticon that Slash got announced and my friend ran BC Cast, he quibbled over the last 100 points. I was like, take the Centigores. Well, why? I'm like, well, they're like Gores, but they're 3 times faster. And so our very first game, we actually faced Nathan Prescott of the Honest Wargamer and his friend. They were both playing double Gits. Well, actually, how they play was they had to do Gits and they had to do Grand Line.
I have played against Nathan.
And so great game. But it came down to oh, well, this could be really this could go either way. Oh, wait a minute. Centigores, near a shaman, moving 17, plus this, and they can run and charge. Shot across the board, tagged a Gits unit that I destroyed with some fiends, and it's oh, got the point. And they couldn't catch up at that point. Those Centigores won us the game hands down.
Yeah.
And they sat there and did nothing for 3 rounds, and then round 4 shot across the board and captured.
Yeah, that's
so many legs.
You call it a keep back unit, right? Yeah, no, there's some crazy shit. I don't know. I'm not mad at the Kragnos thing, the War Scroll and how it exists, especially with the retooling. For me, Kragnos felt like the only winner of the gods that got touched in the what do they call it? The balance update. Kragnos was the only winner. Archeon, and Nagash are both losers. Marathi also won, but in a way that we all lost, because she just got a net buff and no points adjustments by becoming knowing all allegiance ability spells. Oh, hey, we talked about our god models things. All your allegiance spells, immune to death, ward save, double jennies. All your book spells. That's fine.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, all that shit. That's just part of your kit. You all get that.
A foot-named hero, for me, I would say that they get a ward save. I would make it so that they can be slain. However, I would again steal from 40k and I would take their version of Lookout Sir, which is you can't be targeted at all whilst you are near a unit of infantry.
I would say only for named, only because I do remember Vince talking about that. Do you hate Seraphon now? Wait till you can't target skinks.
Yeah, specifically named. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I missed that.
We were talking about that package, Like the pack.
The package for foot heroes. Got it.
Yeah, so for the named foot heroes, I would go, hey, you can't be targeted. You know, like that's your big claim to fame is you're a cool foot hero. Like, what is he for Lumineth? The Light of Elfarion or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, you got Lance Lotharian. You got the one dude on the
Like
llama cat.
he looks like a fantastic model. If we just made him like, I get that he's pretty scary if he eventually gets into combat. Well, then make him able to get into combat. Make him completely untargetable whilst he's next to some Lumineth friends.
Yeah.
You know.
Kernigget, to clarify, Marathi won, but we all lost, so I don't consider that a win. Kragnos won. That Kragnos won the god patches.
He lost a dumb rule that actually just got better.
Yeah.
It was like only he get the 3d6 charge against Draconists, or like, cool, 5 models in the game he's good against. Whoop-dee. Oh, never mind. Actually, everyone in 12 inches of him just Chad charges now. Yeah,
including him.
Oh yeah, he always has a 3d6 charge.
Yeah,
that's where it should be.
Yeah, that's great.
You should half his war scrolls and rules and put them straight on Gordrak. That mace, that's one of Gordrak's axes. Take that shield off him so he has no magic protection. Give him a second mace. That 3d6 charge, yeah, that's Gordrak charging into combat, leading the way for his army.
I agree.
The roar that does mortal wounds, yeah, that's Gordrak getting pissed off. You know?
I would go so far for Gordrak's
teeth hitting you on the charge.
You're making me mad by contact right now. Go. You are an orc player. Go on, Carnith. I cut you off.
Sorry. No, it's my bad. Like Gordrak's destructive bulk should be able to target monsters. Like big teeth should smash other monsters. Like it ain't gonna do no 36 mortal wounds that Kragnos could do on his best day, but like he should be able to like D3 +4 mortal wound another monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you guys got me contact angry. I feel like Kragnos and Destruction is wrong. Because you like half his rules.
Every Destruction player knew that too.
Well, and this comes back to the people who I defer to. Like, you're not always the most correct about your army, by the way. Like you're too close to it in some respects. But like in terms of the design side, the difference between design and development, right? Design versus development. This is something I want to hammer into people's heads. Like sometimes you're too close to your own army to like see its flaws or to have like a better judgment. But by the way, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I want someone who's biased in favor of the army to be in charge of the shot calls for the army, at least at a pure inception point, right? Like, I want somebody who loves the army and like knows the army and plays the army, and like I want them their imaginations and their fire, their passion. I want that. This is like having a vegan cook a steak, okay? Like, I'm sure a vegan makes hella great food, and that they can like learn the like nuances to like to steak cookery from like a book, and like they can make a pretty competent steak. But like if you don't fucking love steak, are you going to make the best steak? You know what I'm saying? Like if you take like, and again, I'm not harshing on vegans, that's not the point here. Like if you don't like actually have a taste for the army and love the army and want to like cook the army, I want a steak right now. Like if you don't actually like if you don't start from that place of supreme passion and interest and love of the thing, you're not going to distill it down to its best version. You're going to start with like a kind of like, you're going to start from someplace in between, and you're going to distill that down to something not the best. Sorry. As much as I hate Kragnos, I don't get why people are so keen to kick him out of Destruction. Honestly, fuck BOC. Ouch! Kragnos doesn't look like them, and he belongs in Destruction. I don't know. Imagine Kragnos being the leader of LRL.
I don't know. You know what? Kragnos can stay if they do the incredibly wrong thing and move Beast of Chaos into Destruction, because then he'll match something.
If they made Beast of Chaos into Beast of Destruction, I would buy Beast of Chaos in a heartbeat.
I hate you both.
I mean, I wouldn't. I shouldn't do that. Beast of Chaos are a Chaos faction. They stay there.
I want Minotaurs. Like, Minotaurs would be amazing as a destruction unit. Like, they scream destruction as it is. You know, that Gorgon, I would love them. You know, you're there saying how bad he is. Well, me as a destruction player, I would love it and cherish it.
Also, just to address Hades, Kragnos doesn't even take over destruction. He fights Godrak, and Godrak's like, "You're good enough." Like, he doesn't even hand it over. Like, they just trick Kragnos into thinking he's the leader. It's not good writing.
I don't mind Kragnos being in destruction, by the way. This shouldn't be the overriding take people take from it. It's that Godrak should be the feature piece, not Kragnos. That's my main like take to get across. Godrak has like pretty epic backstory, like Knuckle of Gork and all that shit, right? Like and he's the one who actually united the Great Wall and supposedly can get all of destruction behind him, like including the Mega Gargants. Like his whole shtick is like like you could have a Grand Alliance Godrak, right? Like that's his whole fucking thing.
I think part of the vitriol against Kragnos from destruction players as well is the fact that Kragnos was put in right at the peak of Godrak's storyline. Like, he's about to crack Excelsis with like this God Beast's ram thing. You know, this is the peak of Godrak, and Kragnos walks in.
Oh, I mean, it's that, and man, what is destruction full of? Oh, big stompy monsters. What's Kragnos? Another big stompy monster. Where does he fit? Does he fit into an army? No, he doesn't really do that either. Can he benefit from anything? Nope. If it says a friendly model, actually Kragnos is like, especially says no, he will not take that buff. And it's just like, so what do we do with them?
Yeah, it's not like you look at Archaon and he's like, what does he do? Well, up until they had to change him in the coalition rules because he was so bonkers, he does everything for every god faction.
And like, he should. Now, granted, you need to scale it back. Yes, double 6 destiny dice on the sword, maybe out of bounds.
But they fixed that by addressing Tzeentch. That was the thing, is like the problem wasn't Archaon himself, it was other things that Archaon could absorb, and they in this same combat patch or game patch, they addressed the problems with him. And then they went too far. That's my problem with like how they addressed Archaon. I'm not an Archaon fan, mind you. Like, I think Archaon's model is the most overrated model in Age of Sigmar. I have a bunch of negative shit to say about Archaon, and I'm going to lose a bunch of followers because of it. I think he's a fucking Mary Sue. I think he's a hypocrite. His whole, like, I'm turbo-atheism in a universe where you know gods exist is, like, kind of stupid. And the fact that he actually, like, absorbs the god buffs and is, like, A-okay with taking them is... Honestly, it'd be way cooler if he was just a mortal dude. And he gave a middle finger to all the gods and didn't take their buffs and did, like, awesome shit. That's way cooler than the fucking Mary Sue hypocrite, like, chode that he is with all of his infinite plot armor. I have, like, very negative things to say about Archaon. But he got done dirty. The problem with Archaon wasn't Archaon. Was Archaon in Khorne a problem? Was Archaon in Slaanesh a problem? Was Archaon in Nurgle a problem? Like, I'm asking you guys not rhetorically. Was he?
He wasn't.
God, no.
No! It was only a problem in Tzeentch. So address the problems in Tzeentch. And then they did. And then they went too far. And that's, as a guy who doesn't like Archaon, being able to see that and point that out, I think that's worth its weight in gold. I'm not an Archaon fan, and I'm like, this is wrong. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, like, Nagash is the leader of Death, so let Nagash be Nagash in every single Death army.
No, he can't anymore. Sorry. No, like the god of death doesn't have his own death save, nor is he immune to a death abilities.
I've got to say, like, when we were in that sort of period where we had, Archaon like leading Chaos, and he just worked in all the Chaos factions, except Skaven. Um, I I really appreciated that Nagash sort of worked in the Death factions, except Flesh Eater Courts, because there was something in the lore about how like he couldn't quite control them properly
Right.
because they were just a bit too savage. And
No.
I really appreciated that. Like, I love the idea that you have a god that unifies your entire Grand Alliance, but there's like the stepchild that they can't quite control.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool story thing to play on.
Yeah, but now they undermine it all. It's okay.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because like the way I've been putting it to everybody is Nagash got nerfed, but Flesh Eater Courts and Night Hunt got buffed. Is like how I'm kind of putting it because like you have these people who like never played Nagash, and this is a core theme of tonight. Now it just keeps coming up. The people who came up with the changes to Nagash and the people who came up with the changes to Archaon, I don't think they were people passionate about playing those pieces. They were outsiders with a task to like address them, and they probably did it fine within the design constraints that they were given by the development team or whatever. Like they addressed the problems that people identified in the community that were problems, and they maybe over address them and so on and so forth. But like if you played Nagash, if you understood the lore, even that you as not a death player, I don't think you own a single death army of Vaniljsas. You like
I
the
used to sold it.
what's that?
I sold it. I used to.
But like you identified like one of the cool things about Flesh Eater Courts was that Nagash didn't control them, and now he can go in their army.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you've undermined like this kind of cool thing about Flesh Eater Courts. Like,
Yeah. The reason I knew that about Flesh Eater Courts was because the Death Army I did own was Flesh Eater Courts, and I got So I know that everyone was happy initially when they got the new book, but I played a very heavy Flayers list. And sort of like you had the Slanesh problem, I was experiencing a Flesh Eater Courts problem. Not because of like Gristlegore murdering people with the double fight thing that everyone else was having a problem with. My friends were having issues with me bringing like 20 odd 30 Flayers to a battle and mortal wounding them off the table before they even take a turn. Like, because like somebody might have gone, oh, I decided to bring Beasts of Chaos, and I'm like, oh, they're bravery 4, are they? And each one of my screams is the difference in the value of my 2d6 -2 versus your bravery 4 -3 because of my stacking stuff. So yeah,
Daka
it was
doesn't
pretty.
really want to make that army. Man, this has been the longest final soapbox ever.
Yeah.
Carnith, you haven't talked for a while, man. Any summarizing thoughts?
Oh no, I think we said everything that we had to say, and then some again,
And then some more. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I've sorry, I'm usually like winding down about nearly 40 minutes ago, so I'm just kind of like I'm vibing.
I no, you tough. Like honestly, man. Like we have a light rapport, and you came on here, man, and you crushed it. So thank you so much. This is really awesome. You have really good thoughts on there. I'm told that you're very passionate about Slanesh, so if there's a great enhancing about Slanesh, I might need to
Oh,
go.
please consider me if you have anyone on for Slanesh. I would love to be a part of it. If it's well, how do we just even freaking fix Slanesh? Like that army's got a lot of work to be done to it.
Yeah, yeah,
Just to make it themey again.
yeah. Fair enough, fair enough. But yeah, I don't know if you want to like drop your Twitter handle or shout out any like content you enjoy, or if you want to do any of that right now.
All right. So always watch Halo. Watch them on the weekends. Support the waifus. Always watch Warhammer Weekly. Here, let me. I can throw my extremely or my pretty boring Twitter.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Skaven should be their own thing. Look at the like. I love the can of worms that opened up from like these hot takes at the end of the night. By the way, like Chat Gang is just like popping off. So yeah, yeah. So what is your Twitter? There it is. At Carnith 3. So
because I think I had made a joke account way early on and didn't want to put one.
Fair enough. Vaniljsas, final soapbox, man. The final soapbox. Anything we missed, any summarizing thoughts, anything like that, and anything you want to shout out or put on blast.
It's just about just changing the mindset to raising things up instead of pushing them down.
Right on.
And that's like my big moment for that. The content that I've been watching and participating in that I would shout out is, I mentioned it briefly before, one of the locals is doing a battle report channel called Saga of Dice, which I will try to get a link for to put into this Twitch if I can.
Yeah. So Saga of Dice. You're doing some of and they have some pretty decent production value from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's so just due to COVID and that it tends to be Rob, who's the person who runs the channel, versus other people. Just to, you don't want too many people in a room for 3 or 4 hours whilst you're filming. But yeah, we're trying to get some variety of armies onto the channel. So particularly he loves playing Skaven. So I know that recently he put something like a Skaven Civil War up, where it's literally him playing Skaven v Skaven, which I know we don't usually see these sorts of matchups in battle reports. And he has gone for like the sort of higher end production value that you can go for, and tried to make sure that it's we can see the table properly, and then it's edited down so that we don't drag out games too much.
Right. Yeah, good editing, good just a good, like I said, good production value to it. So there you go. Vaniljsas got that link in there. I will of course add these links to the down there part for anyone checking the VOD later on. And we'll go ahead and add your artifacts and enhancements, your enhancenation, to the master document, which has the Khorne enhancenations and the Soulblight Gravelord enhancenations. The next great enhancing is Sylvaneth. Next week is an episode that 2 of you will watch in the entirety of Chat Gang, which is finally I'm doing the Wrestling cast. I've got former ECW star Big Sal on. We're gonna like a literal wrestling star on. I'm gonna be doing a podcast. Apparently he's a huge nerd, particularly an RPG nerd. So we're gonna talk about some RPGs and wrestling for really reals. But then following that, we come back with Sylvaneth. You won't offend me if you don't want to like force yourself to watch a show about wrestling. It's all right. There's just some very passionate people in the community. So then after that, we're gonna do Sylvaneth, great enhancing of Sylvaneth, and then I need to apparently make a poll for the next 2-3 enhancings people want to see in the month of February.
The gimme enhancings for Sylvaneth would be the battle line ones. If one of your show people hasn't already done it, I'm not sure if they can be, but Carnith Hunters should be battle line somehow.
Yeah, like sorry, Sylvaneth players, we already took your first one.
Yeah.
It's such a good idea. It has to be done.
Yeah. Oh, Skaven Dakades, all day he dreams about Skaven, saying Skaven needs to be one coming up. I think I'm gonna allow these the Tome Celestials to sort of clear out. So the fear is that I do one of these great enhancings and then like a new book comes out for an army and these episodes are instantly useless, right? I don't think they're useless. I think that the actual insights to design are very, very important. I think that's the most important part of these whole shows. Not necessarily like the literal artifacts we come up with, but like the methodology and the mentality of where we're at. So that's the great enhancing. This is the great enhancing. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on tonight. This has been excellent.
Thanks for having us.
A very productive 3.5 hours.
Oh, we could have crushed this an hour and a half, and then it was just an hour and a half of random other stuff. And I personally would have it no other way. So thank you both so much. Chat gang, you are the show within the show, the reason I do this thing. Remember to drink your milk, pay your taxes, be excellent to yourselves and each other. I'll catch you next time. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
No.